if that pops up, I'm going to start recording too. And I think that our audio is, we'll let people know if the audio is.
I'll subscribe to your channel, sir. How's that? Does that make you feel all,
How dare
all
you?
warm and fuzzy?
How dare you not
I'd
have
like to
already
subscribe to
subscribed?
your newsletter.
Yeah.
I'd like to
I'm
cut a
gonna-
year
Wait, we actually
subscribe.
have one.
And I'm gonna ring the fucking bell, dude. What do you think of that?
I don't know
Ding.
what I think of that.
Ding dong.
Ring the bell, ring the bell. All right,
This might be it. I was just going to say this might be a little obtuse of me, but I just realized that you could, like, if someone says to you, "I'd like to subscribe to your newsletter," they literally could.
Oh, yeah. Well,
Literally.
Well, for those of you who are tuning in, this is our very first live stream cast. We've done some live podcasts before, but never with this method. And I just got an alert over my phone since I subscribe to YouTube that it looks like the Comet is going live with a cast. Are you guys seeing it on the page yet?
Yeah, it sounds great too.
Good. Listen to yourself talking against me. We'll get those levels dialed in. Sorry, this is a little clunky at the beginning, folks, but we said we'd go at 7, and it's a little earlier, so I thought we'd dial in any hiccups that might be along the way. Did anybody tune into the Dropkick Murphys live stream? I know that was the talk of a lot of my Facebook feed.
I don't watch that show.
You don't watch the Dropkick Murphys show?
Excellent.
Oh, did you guys cut out?
No, I'm trying to find my own voice like you told me to, but I'm muting myself.
Oh, I gotcha.
Live stream.
Chris, if you
We got,
Well,
we
fuck,
got
I
that
can't.
7-second delay.
Yeah, no shit.
The Dropkick Murphys show.
Oh
you
man.
sound great. Chris, if you could back off your mic just a bit. Everyone else sounds pretty balanced. You're a little hot.
Hot, hot, hot.
Singing.
You know what I'm
hot,
gonna do?
hot.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna give it a fucking thumbs up too while I'm here. you
Yeah,
know?
why don't you post a link to this on your Facebook pages? Chris, if you want to post the link on our official How Bizarre Facebook page that we are now live, let folks know, and we'll see if anyone trickles into the chat here.
You got it.
I'm most excited to see. We got a long ways to go in the chat or the live stream arena. Like it's kind of the only missing thing in our podcasting world at this point, and we are way behind the times. We realize this. In fact, this one was supposed to be a video cast, but the technology just wasn't quite lining up, and I blame myself mostly and the drink. But we got a good following on the podcast. So we're like it's like starting all over when you go to YouTube. I think this particular channel has 15 subscribers. I think Lyle might have been the big 1-6. So,
All right.
Mazel tov. Mm-hmm.
I'm skipping.
So I feel like this is a really interesting night because I feel like everybody and their butt-loving uncle is streaming something tonight. And why wouldn't they? We're all on quarantine, but I feel, and thank you for joining us, whoever is joining us, because I know we're competing with a lot of cool shit tonight. But this is really an interesting night. This is like the first holiday, like a big going out holiday, a big social, festive, musical, rowdy, drunken, fun holiday of the year. And well, if you don't count New Year's, and we're all inside. But people are starting to find ways of coping with this. And I really like that there's more of an online presence. I would wager that 100 podcasts were started this past week, maybe more. Now, I don't think any of them will see episode 5. Because, well, hopefully we'll be over the shittiest part of the shit show by then. But also, people realize it's a grind. But I like that people are just kind of out discovering things because we talk about all the bullshit that we're learning about from each other right now with the hoarding and fighting over toilet paper at Costco and these horror stories that are horror stories. But we're learning a lot of good things about ourselves, too, like how to be resourceful. Like Sarah was downstairs with the girls all day giving them homeschooling lessons, and she was enjoying it. The kids were enjoying it. At one point, Violet said, I want to do more math. And she was upset
my
because
God.
Sarah didn't have any more curriculum ready to rock.
Worst teacher ever.
Yeah, worst teacher. Way to be prepared. Way to be there for your children.
You gotta watch out for airplanes and spitwads, if you know what I'm saying.
Airplanes and spit. Thumbtacks in that chair, teach.
Oh, remember Staples? Remember when you used to take Staples and like twist them up and sit them like thumbtacks on somebody's chair? Oh, that's terrible. We probably shouldn't teach that to our kids.
I don't think I ever did that. I was never terribly. I was a bitch to my teachers. There's no way around that. But I don't feel like I was ever super terrible to my teachers. There may have been one or two, but I never subscribed to the whole spit a loogie in the teacher's coffee cup when she ain't looking, or put thumbtacks down. So, isn't that kind of assault? And maybe not even.
It is.
And maybe
I would
not
think
even
so.
kind of.
Now it is, I'm sure.
Yeah. Anywho, so I found it interesting to see how people are being resourceful and figuring out how to live online or to engage online. And I know there's a lot of memes going around about, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm an introvert. I've been training for this my whole life. I'm kind of an introvert too, kind of. But it's different. It's different when it's not self-imposed. I do think that those of us who have cats at home are better off. Would you agree? I think quarantining with cats is much more fun than quarantining without cats.
I also think that for as much bad as we've seen, I've also seen a lot of really incredible, compassionate human beings come through the woodwork and do really amazing things for people in the community. Like, I fucking read this tweet, and it was this girl. She was like, I was on my way into the supermarket today, and from her picture, she looked like she was in her mid-30s. And she said she heard this faint yelling and looked over, and she saw this little old couple in a car sitting there with the window cracked, yelling for someone's attention. So she came over and she said, "Are you guys okay?" And they opened the window just a tiny bit more, and they said, "We're terrified to go into the store. We're over 80. We know we're the worst off when it comes to this, and we need groceries desperately." So she slid $100 bill through the window and a list, and the woman went in and got all their groceries, came back with the change, and gave them the groceries, and they were just crying. They were so grateful to have the assistance. Like, I keep hearing things like this over and over again. It's how it should be, right? But like,
it is how it should be.
I was also watching on the news too. Like, there's parts of Seattle that are opening up these grocery outlet stores, and they're doing it early morning for people that are disability and then that are older.
Yeah, they're keeping the young folk out, right?
Exactly.
people that are susceptible to this, like the people with one kidney and shit, Lyle.
Yeah.
Yeah,
probably.
go shopping early in the morning and don't worry about that stop at the gym.
To be honest with you, I actually do shop usually pretty early in the morning. But it's like you go in get your groceries and stuff like that, and then later on to the afternoon they open up to the general public. So it kind of, in a way, dodges a bullet there. But it was funny that you mentioned about the gym. Is that yesterday I drove by and I stopped and I got out and read their pamphlet they had on their thing, and it's 24-hour fitness, so you could go and work out any time you want. It's got a little fob. You control you have access to the building 24/7. And I was reading the pamphlet, and it was basically saying, like, all our classes are going to be down, but we are still going to remain open, and to make sure you wipe down your equipment, blah, blah, blah. And I was like thinking to myself, that's still kind of fucked. Retrospect today, I guess apparently they've closed down all gyms. So
yeah, I think it's happening. If it's not the entire country by the end of the week, it will be by next week.
It's as of midnight tonight. So.
I do like how the states are sort of doing this thing where they're like, the governors are kind of like, they're having a proactive off. It's like
they kind of have to, because there's no one else telling them what to do.
But our governor was like, one of the first, if not the first, to officially say that theaters and art galleries and bars and restaurants are just going to be closed. They have to close. And then New York and some of those areas down there were like, yeah, us too. And then San Francisco is like, bitches, hold my beer. And the entire place is just
scary.
They have to stay home. Like, we don't have to stay home. The motto is stay home, but what they're really saying is don't go out and about into public places and big gatherings. But there's no ban on being out of your home.
Yeah, there's no curfew.
They straight up. I would have to imagine that they're letting them go to the grocery store, right?
Well,
I
you
think
figure.
they're allowed to, go to the store and essential work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we can push this. It's impossible to avoid the topic, but it's St. Patrick's Day, so let's push this. If we have anything else to say about the whole virus thing, and I feel like I got a few things to say, but let's push it toward the end of the show, or somewhere in the middle. We got to get on to Irish legends, monsters, and myths, and I don't have a ton to talk about, but I think it's good stuff. So let me see if I can get my handy dandy slideshow going here. This first chapter is the tale of Malahide Castle. Now, it's not really about the castle itself. This castle, which is just outside of Dublin, dates back to the 12th century, and it's one of the oldest existing castles in Ireland. But it's home to many, many ghost stories, and it's an important castle it's just an intriguing place in history. It was built on an estate owned by an associate of King Henry II, and his name was Richard Talbot. And for almost 800 years, this castle was owned by the Talbot lineage, which I thought was amazing. Like, can you imagine centuries of one family living in this place? I mean, just picture the photo wall. No.
Took me a second.
Right.
I was like, oh, there it is.
The booze is just starting to flow. We'll get better.
Oh, no.
But-
No. The booze started much earlier, to be fair.
Oh, yeah. On a scale of 1 to Gary Busey, where you at right now, Chris?
Oh, I'm like half abuse. It's not that bad.
Mm.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Yeah. 0.5, you're blowing 0.5 Gare.
0.5 gear,
Uh-huh.
officer.
Now, the only break in that residency with the family, Talbot, was during the Cromwellian conquests. And Oliver Cromwell ousted the family and let his politician pal, Miles Corbett, take over the land. And after Cromwell's demise, Corbett was hanged, and the Talbots just moved back on in. More on Corbett in a bit. But the story of Puck goes, he was a dwarf jester for the Talbots.
Cromwell.
Oh, yeah, go ahead and move on now. Checking that feed. Is it still looking good? That's probably a good idea at this point.
Yeah, it's still looking good.
Being the first one ever. We should check in with it every now and again. So Puck was a dwarf jester for the Talbots, and he was fairly well liked, although he was a bit of a recluse. But I'm guessing that these times weren't a barrel of laughs, ironically, for a dwarf jester. So, but King Henry had grown weary of this young woman, rebellious and possibly treasonous woman named Lady Eleanora Fitzgerald, and he sent her to the dungeon at Castle Malahide,
The first one.
which is
Sorry about that again.
That's all right. It's funny to think that back in the day, jails were just in people's basements, right? Like, you sent prisoners to the castle where the royalty, or where, well-to-do families lived. Not everybody in castles were well-to-do royalty, but they weren't living in no straw huts. I mean, picture like Jeffrey Dahmer hanging around, quite literally, in your basement, just awaiting for a hanging. It's such a strange dynamic to think about.
Yeah.
But the Talbots,
I think we should bring him back, personally.
You think we should bring back basement prisoners? I think I saw basement prisoners open for the Bloodhound Gang in '98. Now, a little overblown.
Basement prisoners is a sex thing, too.
Basement
No.
prisoner. Basement prisoners should be a sex move, but it requires 3 or more. Well, that's all I'm saying. I've already said too much. But
Or puppets.
now the Talbots appointed Puck to look after this woman, the dwarf jester, which this whole thing was kind of like a joke and an insult. At the time, to have a man looking after a woman prisoner in and of itself was not an honor. It wasn't a prideful job. It was kind of a joke. And so one thing led to the next, and Puck started developing feelings for Lady Eleanora, and she seemed to have a mutual kinship with the misfit jester, which, they're both sort of outcast. They're both probably not terribly in love with the royalty, or the uppers, as we would say. So they kind of developed this interesting little relationship, and rumors about them fooling around in jail started making their way to the Talbots' ears. Now, those rumors were probably either made up or at least exaggerated. But the Talbots knew that if that word got back to King Henry, that this could be a major bummer, man. So Talbot had some of his men ambush and stab Puck, the jester, outside of the walls of the castle one night. And they simply, when the townsfolk discovered his body, they simply passed it off as a suicide. But everybody knew what was up. You know, everyone in town, everyone in the castle knew what was up. Now, interestingly, Puck was starting to get some shade over all of this before he was killed. And he told some of his friends just a few days before he was killed that upon his death, that was probably encroaching, that he would haunt the castle as long as one single male Talbot resided in the castle. And the stories say that he did just that. But these hauntings were mostly tomfuckery. You know, I mean, he was a jester. So he would do things like pull their blankets off in the middle of the night, or pull their clothes off in public to embarrass them. They'd knock things over, blowing out candles, just disrupting life, you know, that kind of wackiness. And even all the way until the Talbot estate finally sold that castle, which was in 1979, there were groups walking through, touring the castle and looking at it for possible purchase, or it was just open to the public, like come see it one last time before whoever or whatever entity buys it. And during those trips, there was all these kooky antics that were going on. And it was attributed to the forlorn Puck. Now, he didn't seem to keep his word about leaving once the Talbot family was vanquished, because the new owners and the current owners still talk about Puck-esque encounters. In fact, they're reported almost daily at old Castle Malahide. But I thought
being a jester, you figured that he'd take a little poking at, you know.
Mm-hmm. Well, he was just a goofy guy. I mean, he wasn't a mean-spirited guy, even though he was probably poorly treated. In the afterlife, he wanted to fuck with them, but what was he going to do? Be malicious? Wasn't his nature. I like that. I like that he was just trying to disrupt them or embarrass them. That's really what they did to him. Well, until they killed him. I guess that was a next level thing. Hi, Cynthia. How we sounding? Oh, looks like it's sounding good. Someone said that.
Yeah, she says it sounds great.
Good, because we meant for this to be a video cast, if you didn't hear that. So as long as it sounds good, we can proceed. Now, before we move on, remember Miles Corbett, the Cromwell crony. Well, when Cromwell was overthrown and executed in 1660, Corbett fled Malahide Castle. You can have your stupid castle back. Everyone was fleeing. I mean, all of Cromwell's people were fleeing at that point. The Roundheads were done. But Corbett was captured in the Netherlands and actually brought back to Castle Malahide to be executed on the grounds by being drawn and quartered.
Oh, that's a fun way to go.
Now, how's them shits for justice? Now, allegedly, every night on the anniversary of Corbett's death, he runs through, at least once, he runs through the entire hall screaming like a banshee on fire. More about banshees in a bit. But apparently he can appear at any time. And my favorite part of this story is the many apparitions that are reported of Corbett standing in front of somebody, just like face to face, just standing in front of them, staring at them, and then falling into quartered pieces onto the castle floor.
Oh my God, that's fucking fantastic. I want to see it.
Good shit right there. That's some American Horror Story shit right there, if they haven't already done that. They often pull from real stories, you know. American
that's
Horror
great.
Story. But anyway, just a couple of stories from the Castle Malahide in Ireland.
The Netherlands, if you think about it, like the Nether region.
You know, I never made that connection.
Just
Like,
now,
why don't you
it's-
meet me back around in the Netherlands?
Don't make that clicky clack sound. with
Don't
your
tell
mouth.
me what to make on my favorite holiday.
Raised in the Netherlands.
You're going to wish that quality of audio wasn't good.
And how?
So before moving on, drawn and quartered. Thoughts? like
It seems
It's gotta be
unpleasant.
up
For a
there.
short man, then I think it'd be okay.
It's got to
Can
be
you
up
describe
there
the
in-
actual process to us, Ron?
Well, yeah, there are 4 horses, and each horse is tethered to one of your limbs.
Mhm.
Now, if you were lucky, you'd be drawn and be fifth. Your head would come off at about the same time. There'd be 5 horses. And what would that be? John Mark, that sounds like something you'd have the answer to. What's the quartered version? Quintupled? Is that it?
I think so.
We got
Yeah,
that.
I think
Drawn
yeah,
and quintupled.
something. Mhm.
It just doesn't have the same power. But
It does.
It doesn't.
but they sometimes did that. I guess that would be the merciful way of doing it. I would straight up rather have my
As long
head
as the
tied to one of
head
those
horse
fucking
was
horses.
first.
Well, the question
Yeah,
is,
you'd be
like,
unlucky to get the lazy fat horse that didn't want to rip your head off. Go ahead, Lau.
exactly. You get the good stallion one that just rips your arm off, and
Like
then
this.
like, where do you start over?
You're like, oh
know?
man. Yeah, what if only one of them ran? The others are
Do you
like,
like
no,
start over?
fuck
or is
you,
it-
feed me, bitch. And you're drawn and singled.
Now you're just being drawn.
Drawn and singled
Yeah,
might
but-
be the worst, but drawn and doubled is probably the worst. Like half of you's gone. Like
I
the
don't
bottom
think-
half.
I don't think there was any running going on. I think they just like started telling them like, "All right, start pulling," and it was just like pull,
Yeah.
pull, fucking. Ugh.
Somebody told me, I don't know if I believe them, but somebody told me, I'm sure, well, everything exists now, but somebody told me they saw, I don't know if it was Faces of Death or one of these kinds of things, but that they watched a video back in the day of someone being drawn and quartered. And the way they described it, I mean, think of how powerful one horse is. I feel like in the right scenario, a horse could rip your arm off, especially if you were being pulled in
Have you
place.
just seen the muscles on those creatures? They're
Yeah.
like just fucking brimming with muscle.
Now, if they got
No.
donkeys, that's what they should reserve for child rapists. Fucking drawn and quartered by donkeys. Just leave them out there until it fucking happens. Just let nature take its course.
They're just eating grass as they slowly go forward.
But in my mind's, I could be wrong. Someone research it real quick. Actually, John Mark, maybe look up and see. Well, don't look at a video, and don't send me any video. But if you can find something, I feel like, I guess it would depend on the horse, and it would depend on the prisoner in question. But I feel like that if you're whipping, and it also depends on the whipping, right? If you're whipping 4 horses, I feel like they're ripping you apart pretty quickly, and they're powerful stallions and not sickly
and
mules.
I might be wrong, but I mean, I would like to think that kind of like happened in the old cowboy days, more than likely. Also, not so much in the medieval times.
Being
but
drawn
like
and
in-
quartered probably still happens somewhere. I mean, it's a pretty good visual reminder to don't do this thing. Listen, I'm a big proponent of capital punishment in theory, as we've talked about many times on the show. The reason I'm not in practice is for only one reason, because there are too many innocent people accused of crimes. One innocent person dying because of some crime, I don't think is a fair trade-off of 20 people dying for a crime that they committed. That's a horrible logic to me. I get some arguments on that, but ultimately, if we could know that this motherfucker raped somebody or raped a child, murdered somebody, if it was a horrendous crime, yeah, strap that bastard up to a few horses and whip him. I don't want to watch it,
So,
but I would like if other people
according
watched it and
to-
learned.
according to the wiki entry about that is the only thing that it seems to be that horses have to do with it was be to take the person to the place of execution. And so what they would do is they would hang them until they were basically dead, almost dead, and then they would chop them up into the various parts. And then they would
I've
be
been
displayed
misinformed,
in
unquoted.
prominent places across the country.
Yeah, displaying
Um,
bodies is something that hung on for quite a while. Cartel's taking
I
that
saw-
up. Actually, the
Yeah, I
cartel, that's
thought-
who would be. That's exactly who would draw and quarter in 2020, right? Somebody but like that.
Yeah, so it sounds like they did this for a long time until they changed it in the the 19th century legal reform, the sentence of hanging, drawing, and quartering was changed to drawing, hanging until dead, and posthumous beheading and quartering before being abolished in 1870.
Okay, well, what is drawing? What is the drawn part?
The drawing is to take them to the place, like by a horse. Like the horse pulls them there.
You know, in
That's
reality,
Yeah.
that's really not that fucking long ago. Think about
Yeah.
it.
No.
1870.
Oh,
Think about
I
it.
mean that is almost Old West times.
Yeah, it was like the turn of the century, but like, wow. Oh, wow. I mean, if it was common practice, that's fucking crazy.
Very interesting. We'll see. We learned something. Well, moving on. It's funny how I never really stopped to do the math. What does the drawn part of drawn and quartered mean?
Yeah, it's usually they used to tie him to the horse and they'd like take him to the place of execution tied to the back of the horse. That was kind of what the drawing thing was. I thought I remembered hearing something about that in the past, where it's like we all have this idea, we all have this like collective memory that it's being ripped apart by four horses, but apparently that wasn't really correct.
Because I know what your video you're talking about.
Wow,
Like
well,
the face.
The real
Death
world
face.
version is way worse,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
I don't know. That was if
Like
that
you
was-
wish you were
I'm-
ripped
more
apart.
Yeah.
Whew. Maybe they could stop just in time to make you a little taller. Remember the stretcher? That was a similar thing where they would just stretch you until you ripped apart. But did you? I wonder if that is a misunderstanding too. Could you ever truly be ripped apart? Hey Vince, welcome. Thanks for
That'll
joining
be
us.
the rack, right?
Drawn,
I'll
I
look
think,
that up,
is
dude.
disemboweled.
I'll look that up.
John Mark, someone's arguing with you. They say Merkaba. They say that drawn might be disemboweled.
Well, that's no. So like, they're not wrong, but the drawing,
This
the
is
drawing
terminology,
portion of it
yeah.
was
Yeah.
getting him to the place of execution, and after they hung him till the point of near death, they would emasculate, disembowel, behead, and quarter them.
Oh, okay. Hi, Emily.
So yeah, so they hi. Yeah, hi.
Disemboweled and quartered. Well, hi, Emily. Say, are you having a nice St. Patrick's Day? Yeah, we thought
Yeah, so
there'd
they
be
definitely
video
did
too.
disembowel them.
That was the plan, but the Ronster spent 3 days trying to figure this out. I promise you, I put way too much effort into it. I think ultimately I just need a new laptop. I think that the latest software that would have made this easy is probably just not working on my 5-year-old, that's 6 or 7-year-old at this point, laptop. But we will get video soon, we promise. So I want to move on to this next Irish story. Now, I mentioned earlier the legend of Banshees. Now, I've been a Susie and the Banshees fan most of my life, and I've seen some Scooby-Doo, so I know that word. But it's funny how many people don't really know the origins or what it's even referring to. And it is indeed an Irish legend. Now, the word banshee simply means woman of the fairies, which sounds harmless enough, like some Tinkerbell shit, but nay. And that's how they get you. You go around thinking like that, and you're bound to get bansheed, son. But the actual legend is when you hear the gut-wrenching scream of the banshee, out in them thar Celtic woods, you best hug your loved ones because one of them is about to die.
Yikes.
Now, some people think of the banshee as a bit of a harbinger or something that brings death to your doorstep, but most of the legends spin her more as maybe a pathetic and somewhat, definitely a mournful creature who simply mourns when somebody that you love is about to die. Like that's their curse. Whatever these creatures are, they roam the planet and they just know and they come to visit you. And apparently the legend says that when many banshees are seen or heard, that means that a great or holy and an important person is about to eat shit. And while this is thought to be an Irish legend, there are banshee-related tales in the Norse and English ancient mythology. But one thing that I found really interesting about this, there's a tradition in Ireland that goes to this day known as keening. And this is a woman, typically a woman, if not solely, who wails a mournful, usually pretty but sometimes horrific cry in the stead of your grieving family members. So the idea is that I am going to stand in the gap. Don't make any teeth jokes, Chris. In your stead, so that I can mourn, I can feel this pain for you, and I will exercise this pain through this horrible shriek or song of sorrow and mourning. And I thought that was fucking interesting. And this is such a big thing that there are actually professional keeners that are often hired to show up to a wedding or a wedding. Wow, there's a Freudian slip right there. As a twice divorced man, they will show up to a wedding and mourn you. Oh boy, the whiskey's kicking in, gang. It's St. Patrick's Day. By the way, raise a glass to St. Patty's Day in your PJs and having no choice about it. What a weird time we're living in right now.
Yeah, have one for me because
Definitely.
I can't.
Lyle, I'm having 6 for you.
Yep.
Do you think, I was asking Jen this earlier, do you think this is possibly the weirdest fucking time to be live on this planet?
I think
Yeah.
it's so funny. I was just thinking about this the other day. I feel like, of course, that's relative. I would imagine that anyone going through the Holocaust probably asked themselves that question. I imagine anybody going through the Spanish Inquisition or anyone
Fucking
going
civil.
through the bubonic plague. I feel like I'm sure there are entire generations that just sailed through it, right? Like nothing cataclysmic, no nuclear wars, no plagues, no natural disasters, no serial killers in their neck of the woods. They don't understand what it's like to live in a time of crisis. So it's hard to answer that question for me, but I feel like there's no question that this is the most interesting time of our lives, right? I mean, 9/11 is the only thing I can think of that comes close to.
That didn't even come anywhere near what this is to me.
But, well, it didn't. It didn't. But there were some similarities in that we were told to stay inside. Parts of the country were shut down. Certain industries were shut down. Major industries were shut down. Actually, that's a good question. Have the airlines been shut down at this point? The petri dishes in the sky? Isn't that interesting? The most germy places on planet Earth, grocery stores and airplanes and airports, are still a go.
Like passenger flights are probably on their way to being shut down.
Yeah,
they're doing screening before the boarding. So
yeah,
as much as you can. I mean,
by the way, anyone in the chat room, feel free to weigh in. We are watching. If you got questions on anything before we move on to them, feel free to share any knowledge or questions you might have. But before we get back into the last bit on the Banshees, I will say that the other thing about 9/11 was that there was this. You got to remember how long that period was. We're about to surpass it, of course, but it was weeks after that event that life even started pretending to be normal again, right? So,
well, it was a key point in life in general, because once that happened, everything changed. You know what I mean? It wasn't like, let's go back to what it was a month prior to that. It didn't happen. Everything changed.
Well, the generation before that had to deal with, I guess, impending late Cold War doom with Gorbachev. I mean, we caught the tail end of that, kids of the 80s. And the generation before that had what? Vietnam War and I guess
But the thing about that is like that's just a war. We all know what to expect in a war. We've known what war's like for thousands of years. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. It's like their worst thing in comparison. What I'm trying to break this up into two camps. Like everybody, I think everyone has something in their lifetime where they look back and is like, that was fucking bananas. Or while they're living, it's like, can you believe that this is what it's like? The gas line crisis of the 70s, you know, I read about that shit. We kind of had a little bit of that after 9/11 with gas prices being like $6 or $7 a gallon for a while. And now, isn't it insane that now they're like $2 or $3? Who knows when that'll change? But it's insane that it ever went back down. And for a while, post 9/11, it was back down to $1 something. Which, of course, proves that all this is just made up bullshit anyway. And the market dictates the market. There's a lot about capitalism that I despise. A lot about it that I like. I like free enterprise. I like being able to go up and pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But after 4 years of working myself to the goddamn bone and having nothing but poverty and debt to show for it, and probably hypertension, I'm changing my tune on that. Now, listen, I can be blamed for a lot of it because I'm not the world's smartest business person, but this whole idea that you can hard work your way to success in this country it's not that simple.
It's kind of bullshit.
It's not that simple. You're still going to need luck. You're still going to need somebody backing you, whether that's you being raised by rich people or somebody investing in you. Anyway, that's a sidestep. Let's get back. Before we move on, I wanted to wrap up I guess that's
the
enough.
Banshees.
The Banshees. The Banshees, ladies
Oh
and
wait,
gentlemen.
did you?
Ladies
I
and
was gonna
gentlemen,
ask
the
you-
Banshees. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to ask you if anybody had seen Darby O'Gill and the Little People.
Oh
speaking
my
of St.
God.
Patrick's Day.
My fucking
And
dad
Banshees.
was obsessed with that flick, and so I saw it a ton when I was a
Yeah.
child, and it was haunting
the
as a kid.
fucking Banshee shit, man. Come on.
Is that stop motion?
No, I don't think so.
I don't
No.
believe I've seen that.
But it was a young Sean Connery in that movie too.
Oh boy, there's
It's
something
got
familiar
the
about
leprechauns and it's got a banshee in it, and it was terrifying as hell.
that. He's got a
Yeah.
leprechaun and a banshee. Sounds like a
shit was
Saturday
lit.
night, Ross. Yeah. Well, I do
Was that a
want to.
Disney movie? I want to say it was a Disney movie.
What year did that come out?
Fuck,
like
dude, I don't know.
Something, right? I had something.
Yeah, 1960 something, I think.
This is a good little break here. Let's go around the horn here. Favorite Irish or Irish themed movie of all time? I'll start, and you guys think about it. Mine, hands down, my favorite Irish movie, like truly produced like Irish movie. Well, it's also an Irish-based story. Is Michael Collins. Now it's going back to the troubled time. Well, we'll be moving forward into the troubled times of Ireland in the IRA. But Michael Collins is an amazing film. It's definitely not terribly historically accurate. Like the broad strokes are there. And it's also... Michael Collins is a fascinating figure because there's no question the dude was a fucking terrorist. The IRA was a terrorist organization, but they also achieved what they set out to do. Well, half of it in removing the British rule over Ireland. You know, I always forget. Is it Northern Ireland? I think Northern Ireland is the one that's still under British rule, and Southern Ireland is free. Is that right? Do you guys know? Anyway,
No idea.
Michael Collins, if you're interested in the broad strokes of the history of the IRA, or the figurehead, the Che Guevara, if you will, of the IRA, Michael Collins, I highly recommend it. It's a beautiful fucking movie. And I'm spacing the director's name. It's the same it's an Irish director, and it's the same director that made The Crying Game, another Irish film. But, yeah, Michael Collins is my pick for best Irish movie of all time. Chris, what say you?
I honestly I can't think of one. I was like fucking racking my
This is
brain.
a great time to go with Leprechaun 3
Yeah,
in the hood, or was it 4 that's in the hood? Wasn't there? Did we look this up at one point? Wasn't there a leprechaun that made it all the way to space?
Oh
Neil-
yeah, there's Leprechaun in space for sure.
Neil Jordan was the director you were looking for
Yes,
there.
Neil Jordan. And Cheryl just said Darby O'Gill and the Little People is currently on Disney Plus. I am not on Disney
Yeah,
Plus yet.
1959.
but I'm so.
1959 that movie came
Oh
out.
my god.
I don't think I've seen it. I'd have to see like a screenshot of it. But yeah, it sounds like I was obsessed with Ireland for a while and all things Irish, Irish music, Irish food, Irish drink. I've never traveled to Ireland, as we've talked about, but it's It's the top of my list of places to
Neither
go.
well educated nor well traveled.
Neither educated nor traveled, and in love
shame.
with a country I've never been to. I think a lot of people. I think if you did a poll all across, well, at least across the U.S., what's your favorite destination, or where would you like to go that you've never been? I would wager that Ireland is way up there, top 3.
I hear it a ton. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk a little monsters, because I did promise monsters. This is chapter 3, the Dobarku. I think you'll enjoy this slightly terrifying tale. Now, it's known as a river dog of ancient Ireland. Now, river dog is kind of a strange name for what ultimately was a lake monster. But
Seal.
more on the kooky etymology in a little bit. The Dobarku is said to have been a very aggressive carnivore, amphibious beast that often devoured medium to large-sized prey, like big birds, cats, sheep, farm dogs, and the occasional people. Now, the legend talks of a pack-like mentality with these beasts, where a singular sighting of one was pretty rare. Typically, if you saw one, you saw 3 or 4 of them, and they were surrounding and toying with their prey, a lot like wolves, or especially coyotes will do, or lions even. They get bored. We've all seen our house cats playing with either a fake mouse or a real mouse. It's all the same to them. They're playing with a toy. Some of them eat the mice. Most of them don't. In my experience, most of the cats I've had that will kill and play with mice will not eat them. They will eventually kill them just from playing with them too vigorously. They try to save them. Have you ever had a cat that tries to store your a mouse somewhere in your house?
Like a live one. Like, it's not quite dead yet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I've discovered a few half dead. I don't know if they stun them, if they just know how to snap their necks just right. But my point is that animals play with their prey. They are not just food. I suppose that they play more in times of feast and less in famine. They get straight to biz. But if they're just bored, they're out fucking around. Like, especially coyotes. I feel like coyotes are a bunch of bros, like a bunch of douchey bros just out looking for shit to start. They're all drunk. They're like, we're going to fuck something up. I'm like, hey, you fucking house cat pussy. Fuck over here. Fuck you looking at? He looks like a fucking queer to me. Coyotes have that. They just have that douchey pack mentality to me. I've seen them in action. Anyway, so it seems like these creatures, the stories and the legends, surround that type of mentality. So there's actual graves in Ireland that depict carvings of the Dobarku and symbolizing the beast that killed the body that is buried within. There's 3 or 4 of those that are well known. Now here's one from Glenade, I believe is how you pronounce it. And this is from the region, Glenade. But the name on the tombstone is Grace McLaughlin. Now, her husband allegedly heard screaming down by the water while Grace was out in the yard hanging laundry. And by the time he got out to her, she was already dead and being eaten by 2 of these beasts.
God.
So he said he tried to fight them off, but then ran back inside and got, I'm assuming, a gun, and killed one of them, and the other one scurried off into the dark lake. Now, he said that the creature that he shot or killed made a screaming sound that was like a whistle from hell, as he described it, as it died. Now, since the sightings of these creatures have seemingly dropped off for hundreds of years, a lot of cryptozoologists and mainstream researchers alike agree that these could have possibly been some sort of creature that is now extinct, like a real creature, not something of legend or lore. I mean, of course, it could have been turned into that at this point, but So on that note, the name Dobarku translates from ancient Irish to modern English as otter. Killer otters from Dark Lakes of Gale Grenade. I would so watch that
You're
on
shitting me.
Sci-Fi. Otter.
It reminds me
Now,
of
that doesn't
Tiny
mean that they were
Tiny-
seeing otters. And I don't know of one single story, if I'm being honest, of a
No,
killer
I learned
otter.
Recently, I learned recently that a gay man would call me an otter.
Well,
that's
well,
right.
maybe he ottered. Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay. Anyway, the story of the Dobarku. Look at that tombstone. There are a few. Look up the tombstone, the Dobarku. Now, how do you spell this? It's DOBHR-CHU. So Dobharchu is how it's spelled.
Bless you.
Look, well, I better not be the Coroni. Look up these pictures. This is the best one. I love. Yeah, maybe this is all bullshit. Probably this is all bullshit, but I love the complete feeling of this legend ending in forever tombstones that feature this beast that were said to have killed the person that's buried under that rock. That's fucking fascinating to me.
So
Yeah.
I'm imagining a little bit of Monty Python.
Imaginating.
Think of Monty Python and two soldiers
And he's the
walking
sober one.
across a little dirt, little road next to the lake,
Yeah.
and they'll be like, "Oh my God, look, it's a deadly otter!" You see a little otter cracking fucking nuts on his stomach as he's floating off.
Well, he should be cracking their fucking skulls open like nuts on their tummy.
Right.
We shall get them and crack their skulls open upon our tummy.
It's just a wee little otter. Don't be scared.
It is the otter. What, behind the otter? It was so hard. This whole list that I've compiled, everything, in fact, when we started tonight, I almost started singing, Bravely Bold Sir Robin. I know none of that is Irish, but it's as close as I know to Irish. Okay, so finally, I did promise, let me kill this, and bring in Chapter 4, Lucky or No. I thought, being St. Patrick's Day, how could we end our St. Patrick's focused portion of the podcast without talking about luck? So some of this is good luck, some of it's weird luck, some of it's plain old awful. But let's go through some of these quickly, and then we'll play some games. Now, these are more bite-sized. So first, a little good luck. A Melbourne, Australian man won a brand new car from scratch-off tickets that he played on a complete whim, just out of the blue. Went to the store, bought a ticket. The local news caught wind of it, and they went to interview him, as they do, and they wanted some sort of reenactment footage to give the story a bit more pizzazz, as the kids don't say anymore. So they went to the same place and bought the winning where he bought the winning ticket, and he bought another ticket, and all they were going to do is have him scratch it off and either pretend like, hey, it's the winner, or just say, well, that's how it happened. Well, womp, womp. This one's a loser, but that's how it happened. But instead of having to do any of that, he actually won $250,000 right in front of the cameras.
Fucking twat.
How about that shit? And it's all caught on tape. This happened in, I think, the late
Did he
80s.
die 5 minutes later?
Well, some guys, I bet he is dead. That's how luck should work. I don't know why. I'm angry about that. But $250,000, I feel like this was late 80s or early 90s. That's $250,000 back then. Yeah. That's a big chunk of dough. Lucky motherfuck. But hilarious to see the look on his face in that
I
video.
remember as a child hearing the phrase, "That's a $250,000 home," like in awe. Like I remember my parents saying that in awe.
I've got a
and-
$250,000 home now, son.
Now in Bremerton, a $250,000 gets
Moving
you
on,
fucking like a cardboard box in an alley.
Yeah, that's probably exactly what my house would appraise for right now. It's a cool house on a chunk of property, but I got some fixing up to do, son. Anywho, moving on, this next one will either excite or enrage Golden Era comics enthusiasts. And that's the story of David Gonzalez. I feel like this guy came up on the old podcast at one point, but he bought, speaking of fixer-upper house, he bought a fixer-upper house back in the 80s for $10,000. I got mine for $70,000 in 1999, and that was a cheap house. But after tearing down just a few walls for renovation, he discovered a bunch of newspapers and magazines and comics crammed into the slats being used as insulation. Now, one of those comics was Action Comics #1, which happened to feature the first appearance of a little-known character called Superman. He very quickly sold it for $175,000. Now, keep in mind, he bought the house for $10,000. So, now this was back in the 80s. I looked it up before we got on the show. Action #1 now, a high-grade copy. This one was probably a little roughed up, but a high-grade copy now goes for well over $3 million. Either way, he would have done a little bit better to wait a few years before selling it. But still, $10,000 house into a $125,000 sale. That's a respectable house flip by any measure.
Yeah.
Let me scroll back up through the comments, see what we missed. Did it take place in the Redwoods? I don't know what that means. I was confusing that with the Gnome Mobile. Gnome Mobile? Oh, Gnome Mobile. What's the Gnome Mobile?
I think
Is that the insurance
this
guy?
This is from earlier.
Yeah.
I think we were talking about Darby O'Gill.
Right. I'm just trying to get caught up. Cheryl said, remember that movie Blank Check? Oh, I know that name. I don't think I saw that, though. Cynthia says, the name roughly translated means water hound or hound of the deep. Thought to be cross between a giant otter or a hound. Yeah, we could be talking about a killer otter here, folks. I mean, listen, you combine an otter with, like, a wolf. You got to imagine that thing's taken down at least a couple of folks out doing laundry.
And looking adorable occasionally.
And eating them upon their precious floating tummies. That footage of otters holding hands together so they don't drift apart is the only thing I've ever seen that makes me feel alive. For a brief while.
That and that woman in the cage video you like to watch.
Well, I filmed that, so I was alive. I know I'm making my mark. And
I'm an artist.
Mean my mark. I am an artist. And you shall be my semi-willing... Oh, I shouldn't say that in this day and age. Fully willing. So, moving on. Now, Lucky Raymond...
Semi-willing to be a great band name, by the way.
Semi-willing.
It
would be a great 90s band. It would be an ousted 2020 band. Go ahead, Lau.
So she ask you to paint her like one of your naked girls? Titanic reference?
Paint me like one of your French women. Lucky.
Didn't Semi-Willing open from Cherry Popping Daddies once?
Oh my! Now we're getting weird.
Awkward. Boy, you took that joke.
Speaking of 90s bands.
Zoot Suit Riot. Yeah. Throw back a bottle of... Okay. Lucky Raymond Levy. That's all I had written for the notes here. Now, he had to be feeling lucky after he survived going back to the IRA. An IRA bomb that went off just a few feet from his car while he was driving down a small street at Manchester City Centre. Now, people died in that explosion. He was just feet away from that explosion. That's lucky enough. In 92, Levy was staying with some friends in a London flat when yet another IRA bombing, or this one might not have been an IRA, it was a terrorist bombing. Everything during this time was probably being associated with the IRA or IRA sympathizers, if you will. But people died in that one too, and all of his friends in the flat were injured. None of them died, but they were all injured except for Lucky Raymond Levy. And as if that wasn't lucky enough, by the way, remind me to cancel all appointments with Ray here in any building in any town, because in 1996 he was at a traffic light stopped next to a double-decker bus that was again bombed by the IRA. This time it killed 3 people and injured, I think, like 10. He was once again in the explosion radius, but remained unscathed. And he's thought to be the only person to have survived more than 2 IRA attacks on planet Earth in the during the era known as the infamous troubled times. I don't know. Is that lucky? I guess. Like it's hard
guess.
to it's hard to
Well, you know,
say
you
I've
do-
been in 3 explosions. How lucky are you? But
Right.
again, I guess this is a glass half full or half empty when you're comparing how many times you've died in an explosion.
I feel like he needed to get better hobbies and to put himself out of arm's reach of that type of thing.
He's
You
like,
know
I
what
smell gunpowder. I'm going out.
Yeah.
By the way,
it's
Cynthia
got-
in the chat says Croco Otter. That is what we would be watching on the Sci-Fi Channel. All of you caught up live, by the way. Some of you seem like maybe you're commenting on stuff from behind, which you can if you want to just see the whole thing. You can scroll all the way back to the beginning, but then you won't be live and hanging out with us, so whatever. And it will be archived, so you won't be missing anything. I'm recording the audio of it for the podcast this week, but also this video that you're seeing now will stay on Facebook. So moving on to a couple more, and I would file this one under bad, good, then maybe bad again, and then okay luck. This is a story of poor Benny Carpenter. Now, he was a paraplegic who was crossing a street in his wheelchair when a fucking Mack truck hit him.
Oh my God! What?
That should have been the end. The Mack truck wasn't going super, super fast, but fast enough. And somehow
Oh, no.
the trucker didn't see him. So he kept on trucking. And eventually reaching speeds, I shit you not, of 50 miles per hour. All while this poor fucking
he was.
bastard.
Wait, no. Wait. So let me be clear here. He wasn't just smashed on impact.
No.
He was clinging to the grill of this fucking Mack truck.
His handlebars were stuck in the grill. The wheels. We're going to hell for laughing. The wheels. He survives. I'm getting out ahead of that. His wheels were on the ground. His handlebars were stuck. There's photos of the aftermath of this, which is
It's like, let's hit 88. I go back in time to when I can walk again and not be on this truck.
he's like, well, Lord, you never did give me an easy one, did you? But would it be too much to ask to not go out like this? But he was. I feel like the story said it's not in front of me anymore. But I feel like the story said like he was. They were doing 50 miles per hour for miles.
No.
Oh, can you imagine that? Think about that. That dude,
Oh my
he was
God.
just hanging on for dear life. He said he looked down and his wheelchair was just like slowly disintegrating underneath him. Now, thankfully, somebody, I think they honked the trucker's attention and they came to a stop before old Benny lost his entire time on Earth. But holy shit, can you imagine being in front of a semi going highway speeds, maybe even like low freeway speeds? You're already, again, you're already in a tough spot. Your fucking wheelchair is smoking and falling apart, and you know that it's only a matter of time. And the trucker just kept on going.
It'd be worse if the person beside him was like, "Hey man, is that one of those Peterbilts?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, man." He goes, "Well, did you notice you got a hitchhiker?" You go, "God damn, I didn't. It was speeded up a couple gears and down the
Is that
highway."
one of them Peterbilts? He's like, someone pulls up to him. They're like, "Hey man," he's like honks him down. He's like, "What is going on?" "Yeah, is that a Peterbilt?" Or gets his answer and drives off. Poor Benny's like,
Do you have any
"Hey."
Grey Poupon?
Oh, poor little Benny. Now moving on to, and that was a good luck. That was the good luck category. I'm just going to do a couple. We're getting long in the tooth here, and I want to move on to some fun games.
Whoa. To be clear, the motherfucker that is crippled and gets hit by the Mack truck and drugged for 5 miles, 60 miles an hour is the good one? The good luck one?
Well, that's what I said. It's a
Yeah. weird
luck. Well, he could have. Listen,
I'm gonna say,
you're in a
we're going
wheelchair
downhill.
and you get hit by a at legal speed Mack truck.
In your wheelchair.
If you survive that, I say that there's a little bit of luck on your side. I'm
Or
not
was it
saying.
Peterbilt?
I'm not. This is going to start a new meme on the show. I'm not saying that he's the luckiest.
The luckiest,
luckiest
cripple that ever got hit
paraplegic
by a Mack
on
truck.
planet Earth. I'm just saying he could have been unluckier that day. He could be dead. As far as I know, he's still alive.
Glass half full of baby. Whatever you got to do.
Yeah, glass half full, a body. Okay, no, moving on.
Body half working.
You had to finish it, didn't you? You just had to finish it. We're horrible people. Disclaimer. An hour into it. Now let's move on to some of the decidedly unlucky ones. But you see what I mean? You could find some good luck in there. Yes, 7. We do need that sneeze button. Now, famously, Ron Wayne, which is, by the way, my first and middle name, he was the third cog in the wheel, if you will, in Apple. You know, Steve Jobs, Wozniak, and Ron Wayne were the earliest entity of Apple. Now, they were all pioneering this shit in a garage somewhere in California in the late 70s. And they'd made some exciting advances and technological breakthroughs, but ultimately things were moving a little too slow for Wayne's taste, and he felt that the younger Steves and he were not really a good fit. He felt old. He was older than the other guys, and so he's like, you know what, I'm out. So I'm gonna sell my shares to you guys and split. Now, he sold those shares, which I guess would have been 1/3. I'm sure there were some investors, but it was a big chunk of that company. He sold that for about $2,800 in the late 70s. Those shares now are worth well over $100 billion.
Oh.
And Ronnie Wayne is still with us, last I looked up. So that's one that you might regret. Now, he initially said, I have no regrets, but we all know better. I think later on he at least had the humor to say, maybe I should have waited a little bit more before selling those shares.
Yeah,
No one could have foreseen
Technically.
what any of it would have become. I mean, as visionary as any of those early Silicon pirates were, none of them could have foreseen where they would go and what they would do and how important, even with those egos, how important they would be to the history of this entire species. Nobody could have foreseen that. So, you got to feel for him a little bit. But yeah, he probably should have hung on to some of those shares. Sell all, even if he would have kept 10% of it. Give me $1,500, but I'll leave 10% in. He would have been a multimillionaire. If not, he would have been a billionaire.
Yeah,
Imagine
he would've
having
been
10% of Apple.
Better off now. No.
Oh, Ronnie Wayne, will you ever win? Now, apparently, there is only one confirmed human being in recorded history that has been hit by a meteorite, which is a funny one because on the one hand, it would have to make you feel special and unique, which you are. You're in the most narrow of categories, right? At the other hand, what kind of special are you? You got hit by a golden space rock.
I'm getting that Joe Dirt vibe where it's like the peanut.
It's a space peanut.
Not a peanut.
There's a peanut. He's carrying it around the fucking wagon. I need to go back and watch some of those stupid. The 90s, the mid to late 90s was the heyday of, in my opinion, the stupid comedy. I
think we're all gonna have some time on our hands here, so
yeah. Well, I
get
feel
founded.
like Black Sheep. I prefer Black Sheep to Tommy Boy. I got to be honest, but I love both of them. The Mask. Well, any of the early Jim Carrey stuff. Dumb and Dumber. Think about Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison, those, and a lot of them were Lorne Michaels productions. It was SNL alumni. But yeah, Joe Dirt. Go back and was there a Joe Dirt 2? I feel like there was.
There was.
Much later.
I don't know.
I don't.
That ain't even worth looking up.
Was.
I hear no clicking, and that's appropriate. Yeah, maybe there was, maybe there wasn't. Anyway, Ann Hodges of Alabama was napping on her couch in 1954 when a fucking space rock crashed into her roof. An 8-pounder, son. That's a bowling ball to the face.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a pussy.
From space. It's a bowling ball if you're, well, what do you bowl with? We just went
16
bowling with the
pounds, baby.
girls. They were bowling with the 6-pounders, and in their hands, that's pretty heavy. You do a 16, that's what I did when I bowled. I miss bowling. I didn't pick up a rock and throw it once because I knew that my carpal tunnel was like, who do you think you are, son? Do I need to remind you?
That's one of the last places you want to go now.
Oh, yeah. Well, they even, the governor in Washington even specifically mentioned bowling alleys. Yeah, that Lysol, that little dusting of Lysol on the shoes ain't going to cut it. But
Those balls are petri dishes at the best of times.
oh, sure. Well, the light never hits the inside. All those fingers going in there.
Moist holes. Oh, did I?
All those unlit, moist holes. That's the last place you want to be right now.
Yeah, that's the last thing you want to be sticking your thingies in. Fingers.
Amazingly, Anne did not die. The rock actually, it came through the roof. That slowed it down. Then it bounced off her radio. That slowed it down, and then smacked her in the puss. Now, she was injured, but not terribly badly.
In the puss?
Yeah, the old-timey puss. Now, her luck didn't get much better from there because the
Wait, hold on.
media...
Wait, you said in the puss?
Are you not familiar with that
Yes,
old-timey phrase?
in the kisser. In the
Yeah.
puss. In the,
The
kisser.
puss.
No.
I think that went out in
um,
the 60s
I grew up on
for
the other
obvious
side of the
reasons.
tracks, apparently, because that word's got different meaning to me.
You grew up on the other side of the 70s. When were you born again, Chris?
50s.
81.
81. So you were, by the time you were really aware of shit, you're what, in 87, right? 86?
Sure.
Like,
Like GI Joe
98.
was already over. Same with
98.
I'll let you know. Yeah. So that's a big difference from some. I was born in 75. So by the time I was aware, I remember some of the 70s, but by the time I was really aware and making memories and noticing shit, yeah, it was like brand new 80s. I'll never forget the New Year's of rolling into 1980. It was a big fucking deal. And Ronnie Reagan took the office, and anyway, well, makes me sound like 50 years old, which I almost am.
And now here we are.
Yeah.
Boomer
Here
Ronnie.
we fucking are. Boomer Ronnie. I feel like a boomer sometimes. But
Oh, I do too.
there'll be something. What would they call us? I guess Xer? Whatever, Xer. I mean, we're Generation X, right?
Nobody cares about us. We're totally ignored and forgotten.
Great.
Way we like.
There's no better place to be, but ignored and forgotten, in my personal opinion. Now, she didn't die. It bounced off the radio, smacked her in the face, and after that, there's this big media frenzy. Damages were done to the property. People were invading her privacy. She had to put up tarps around the windows, fences around the house. That was problematic. And then, because this was the space age, a rock from outer space. This one story probably inspired half of the B movies in black and white that you see that involve space on Mystery Science Theater 3000. Something falling from the heavens, and some kooky lady in a trailer park going, "Oh, I don't know about this glowing thing." I mean, this is probably what inspired a lot of those stories. Certainly Tales from the Crypt, the comic book. But after that, she was sued by her landlord, who claimed, like, well, first of all, you owe me for the damages through your roof, as if she summoned the space rock to her face. But secondly, that since that rock fell on his property, that it should be his property, because they knew this thing was probably going to be worth some money. So this big, long, drawn-out court battle, and she ended up winning the rock back, but she never did find anyone to pay a significant amount of money for it. So there was this falling out between her and her husband for a while, but then he died, and then she went into some sort of like mental breakdown not long after that, and then she died. Everything in her life seemingly was fine up until that space rock falling from the heavens. I find that interesting. It really is like a plot of one of these old-timey comic books or sci-fi movies. But anyway, let's see. Looking at the clock, on that note, I think it's time to move on to the fun portion of the show. What say ye, boys? Should we do a little... Now, what do you got for us, Christopher?
All right, here's the deal. I got a couple of different lists we could do. One is the top 10 days of the year that Americans drink. Being as we're kind of on a drinking holiday of sorts,
As a
and
former
I think
bar
we're
owner, I
probably
feel
all but
pretty
loud
good.
drinking. What's that?
As a former bar owner, I feel pretty good about my odds on this game.
Okay, that's fascinating because there is I'm going to tell you straight up, I've got the top 10 here. Almost all of them are holidays, but there's one in here I think that's going to throw you for a curveball and you'll be like, oh, and it's high, real high.
Okay.
You know, I'm going to tell you right now, none of them are like your birthday. It's something that happens every year.
Okay. And something that's universal.
Something that is universal to America, at least.
Okay. Gotcha.
American. So, let's see here.
Well, what's
I
the
do
next? What's the
believe-
next game?
Oh, the other game I have is it's a list. It's a ranker list, and it's the top. Which Star Wars characters deserve their own spin-off movies? Which I thought was kind of cool.
Okay.
From
I'm
Star
down. I
Wars
gotta go
now.
fill up my whiskey. Talk amongst yourselves. I'll be right back.
Okay. Well, what are we playing during
Rhubarb.
the? What'd you say?
Rhubarb.
Okay.
I like rhubarb. It's kind of nice. Used to pick a plant by my house that had rhubarb when I was a kid. And it was delicious.
You
Rhubarb
never
cookie?
heard that one either, Chris? Or have you
No.
heard that one?
Uh-uh.
So like when you want to say something that you're just like you're not really saying anything, but you want to distract somebody, make it sound like you're talking. You say rhubarb.
Why though?
Rutabaga. No, for real. I've been playing the Division 2 with my bro.
You're still doing that. That's cool. Is it good? Is it better?
It's really good, dude. It's really fun, but it's like a little too close to fucking home right now, really. But you got to do what you got to do.
Man, ain't that the truth?
I've been streaming Death Trap Dungeon, which is pretty dope on Twitch. It's Lyle T on twitch.com. And it's basically a D&D, choose your own adventure kind of scripted deal. It's pretty dope.
Interesting.
I haven't beat it, so it's basically just playing D&D with an AI. So
Nice.
pretty cool.
God, I'm playing Witcher 3 again. I'm so
Are you?
far into it, and I can't stop it.
I dialed it
Oh.
up today.
So
I
good.
contemplated that.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, I was gonna stream it. I was thinking about.
I even
streaming
got
it.
into
I
fucking Gwent. I love Gwent.
Do you?
I couldn't do it. I can't do
Yeah.
it, man.
Yeah, I'm like,
dude,
He's
I
talking
couldn't do
video
it either.
games.
Yep.
Yeah.
Always
It's
behind
what
my
we
back.
do every time you step away, fool.
Well, by the way,
That's our go-to.
we are working on the video podcast, but one of the things that we're excited to do is our version of these video game streams. And I would like to get into some retro gaming so I can actually participate in the play. But more importantly, I'm looking forward to just commenting on all of your gameplay, because we did this at Christopher's house one night, and I had a
Oh,
good time
no.
with it.
I think I'm on some government watch list after Ron started borderline sexual harassing a fucking 11-year-old boy.
I didn't know there were any children, and I don't remember it being remotely
Now he's no longer
sexual.
allowed. within
Harassment,
60
sure. I just feel like all I was trying to do was get everybody to help me look for a box of tacos. What game were we playing?
Halo.
Oh, hey.
There's no box of tacos in Halo, right?
No, not yet.
See, that was my mistake.
It's not
Not to
van
my
full of
knowledge.
puppies either, Ron.
But stay tuned to that. And if you do appreciate these semi-willing endeavors that we got, by the way, I know a certain paraplegic that was semi-willing.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh,
God,
that's too
that was
far.
Oh no.
That's what.
Semi-wheeling.
That's come on. That's wordplay. You gotta reverse.
Semi-wheeling.
You gotta reverse.
Semi.
Oh, too far, John Mark. Jesus Christ. We're talking about a human here who can't walk. Now, if you do support these
Corona, you did.
endeavors, patreon.com/Tales from the Spacepod. Although there's supposed to be a tip jar link somewhere in this feed. I don't know if I did that right. But patreon.com/Tales from the Spacepod is the easiest way. And I think they take the smallest percentage. So if you do want to support us, $2, that's enough. I think that's what this podcast is worth so far. But now that it's Christopher's portion, we're going to double that. So throw in $4. All right. So where are we at first?
Okay, so I do believe last time we did this, the Ronster won again. So I'm gonna make him go last this time, so he doesn't get the first pick at these juicy answers. So
When I win, I
Lyle, you're
lose.
gonna go first.
Oh,
I thought you won. You won
the
the last one.
No, I'm saying even when I win, I lose.
Oh, yeah, you do.
what was
Suck it.
the,
So, Lyle, you're gonna go first. John Mark's gonna go second. Ron, you're gonna go third. The first thing we're talking about here is the oh god, I lost my note. Oh shit. Just a sec. Not like we're
that was
doing
a
it live.
big deal. No pressure, none at all.
Okay, top 10 days of the year that Americans are drinking.
I'm leaning on two different days that I enjoyed. Well, I wouldn't say that. I guess the funnest day to drink would be, I would say Halloween, because you're having a good time and dressed up, and you never know what you're going to go home with.
That's got to be a good one.
Typically.
That's a big
Yeah.
one.
Halloween, number 6 on the list. John Mark.
Well, if we're talking Americans, there's a lot of good ones. But I mean, I'd have to say 4th of July.
4th of July, 5th on the list.
Wait, we're not talking strictly American. This list is strictly American, but the celebratory things could be worldwide. Yeah.
Well, the list is top 10 days of the year Americans drink.
So it'd be silly to say New Year's.
Well, I don't think so.
I'm gonna say
it's all,
I think it's the number one. Boy, well, is there a
Is it,
reason no
though?
one has said St. Patrick's Day? I feel
Well, it's one of the two, because I'm going to say one of the two you're not.
yeah. I'm torn between. Well, I'm gonna go with what I think is the biggest drinking day of the year anywhere, and that's New Year's Eve.
This list is going to shock you a little bit, but I think when you think about it, it's going to make sense. It is on the list, but it's number 10.
New Year's Eve is number 10.
It is. And I think that
I'm
a lot
guessing
of people
that
are more
St. Patrick's Day
conscious
is
about their drunk drive. Usually you're going out, you're not staying at home, and a lot of people have to drive or and whatnot. I don't know.
Okay.
It makes sense when
You gave me a
number one's
clue.
gonna make
You
sense.
might have just inadvertently or on purpose gave me a clue about my next guess. All right. Gotcha. I feel you.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I still think that's
I-
nuts. 10? Jesus.
Yeah, it's number 10. Yeah.
Yeah, it seems a little low to me.
I make half of my year on New Year's Eve. Sorry, Lau, go ahead.
filthy holiday that one is. I'm going to go with alcohol being a depressant, and I'm going to go with Single Awareness Day on Valentine's Day.
Not on the list. Mm-mm.
At all? Oh
Not
wow!
on the
Yeah.
list.
I was
Sorry,
gonna take-
buddy.
I was going to take the free one, but I figured I'd make the jump, make the leap.
Yeah.
John Mark.
Well, I mean, it's St. Patrick's Day today, so we all know that that's one. But the question is, what's the position? And so I'm going to go with Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo's number 3 on the list.
Ay ay ay!
Number 3 in the
Cinco de
U.S.
Mayo. Uh-huh.
is a Mexican holiday.
Correct. People love tacos and tequila, motherfucker. I don't know what to say.
Goddamn right.
I'm gonna put this out right now to anyone listening. Feel free to throw a guess in there. I've given these fools 2 rounds, so I'm gonna say don't look in the chat, you guys, if you can
Yeah,
avoid it. And I'll,
you
pull
guys
some
go ahead and
answers.
play along out there.
Yeah.
We'll ignore it for a while.
Ronster.
Well, coming back around, you said something that made me think. Okay, what's a stay-at-home drinking occasion? I got to think that the Super Bowl's high on that list.
Number 1.
Oh,
Number
dang.
1 on the list.
All right.
Super Bowl.
There's
Back
always
in it,
there's a
baby.
learning curve with these because you got to see.
There is.
You got to see where the people are, where their head's at. I still think New Year's Eve at 10 is ridiculous, but well,
It is ridiculous.
I guess that's just depending on your life.
Okay. we're
I
coming
wish
back
that
around
creaky
to-
door would have happened when I was doing my haunted castle story. By the
I'll
way,
keep that in
another
mind
thing
for
that I
next
want to do with
time.
this is a live. Remember, we were going to do that old timey radio thing where Amelia Earhart pairs up with.
Yeah, the radio story. the
Yeah, it was
radio
like an
drama,
old time
yeah.
radio drama, DB Cooper,
Yeah.
and it was like an adventure, like a Scooby Doo team of investigators.
And the Chupacabras in there somewhere.
Chupacabra, who else? Bigfoot.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Tales from the Space Pod. Oh, how was
Yeah, wouldn't that be fucking fun? That'd be so much
I'm gonna
fun.
go ahead and say we had a couple of suggestions for holidays. One, well, not holidays, but days that Americans drink. One was Election Day by Cynthia. That's not on the list. That's a great guess though.
Election day last
Cheryl
time was.
Cheryl Martin says Christmas. Am I right? Christmas isn't on the
Oh.
list, but
It's
it's
a big drinking
funny
day.
because there is. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there. It was a good guess.
Okay.
Feel free to put a couple more in there when you think of them. Lyle, did you guess? I can't recall.
No. I was actually going to say that Christmas, because Christmas time, it's kind of eggnog-y and all that good stuff.
Well, this would be now an excellent opportunity to not and go with
Yeah,
another
you got a freebie.
Right? So, it doesn't doesn't leave you with a whole lot of other holidays, does it? Thanksgiving, glasses of wine.
Yeah, I
and
think most of us
turkeys.
drink pretty heavily on Thanksgiving.
I'm gonna. Okay, no, it's Thanksgiving is not on the list. There's something. Well, I'm already giving too much away.
No clues,
No, just pass.
no
Go on.
matter how badly we
Jamar.
suck.
Too much. Fuck, I can't. I'm trying to think of other days that are not necessarily holidays or that aren't the big ones that. I'm just trying to. I'm just trying to think. Well, no one's actually guessed St. Patrick's Day.
That's
yet,
what I
right?
was just gonna guess. I was like, we're 4 rounds into it, and no one has guessed St. Patrick's Day on
'Cause
St.
it's just-
Patrick's
it's
Day.
just-
And I
It's
even
just
brought
out
it up
there.
before
We've
we
been
started
dancing
guessing.
around it, trying to save it for last.
It's-
Right?
yeah,
I'll just. I can't think of anything else, so I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I'm gonna guess 2.
Number 7.
7. Super Bowl is
That's-
1. St. Patrick's Day is 7. New Year's Eve is 10. Anything
That's
could
just
happen in
weird.
this list,
This is a
motherfucker.
weird
Anything
list.
could
Yeah,
happen
that's
right
crazy.
Roster.
here. Universal, but 2 Americans. Okay, yeah, I too am gonna try to think outside the holiday box. We've all had a little holiday box, am I right? Like a vacation boyfriend thing. I mean, girlfriend. I got a holiday box. No, unwrap that package under the mistletoe. Everything wraps
Wrap
itself
the
at
bow,
this
if you
point.
know what I'm saying. All right.
Boy, something in America. What's festive, but not. I Cinco de Mayo still blows my mind. I'm trying to think of something closer to. God, I don't think any of my guesses make sense for this list. But let me think. I'm gonna go with. Fuck. This is really fucking hard. This might be the hardest list you've brought because everything's upside down.
It
I
is
guess
truly upside down.
I don't know. Maybe. Well, not in America. I was gonna say the World Cup. Why not in America? I'm trying to think of something else like that. There's nothing like the Super Bowl, though. Not even the World Series. Well, fuck it, the World Series. I can't think of anything else.
It's not on the list. Sorry, buddy. I'm gonna cap you guys there. Cynthia actually put out a great guess with Mardi Gras, which was number 2 on the list.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, fuck. That just happened too. How did I
Mardi
forget about
Gras.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go through top 10 here with you.
Okay, seriously. When's the last time you all got fucked up for Mardi
I
Gras?
mean, my casino does a fucking thing every year for
Yeah.
it, so people
I've-
flock to it.
Everyone
I
other than Christopher.
Yeah.
That
I mean, I don't.
It was a good guess,
fucked up.
regardless. If I would have thought of it, I would have guessed it. But I wouldn't think that it'd be
also
number
it's-
2.
I think maybe elsewhere in the country it's more highly celebrated than where we're at too. I don't know. Could be wrong.
Okay, I'm gonna scroll up. Oh yeah, we got Election Day. I don't think there's a ton of people watching.
I would have said Veterans Day if there came.
Yeah, actually, well, here let me read through the list
Is
here.
Labor
10
Day on there?
Labor Day was on there. 10,
Yeah.
Number 10
What?
was New Year's Eve. 9 was Memorial Day.
Labor
8
Oh,
was one of my
Jesus.
fucking favorite days.
It's
to
just
drink.
day off. We're such fucking. We're such dipshit. I don't got to work
like-
tomorrow. That's a fucking
It's like-
drinking
no,
holiday. I'll
it's,
say.
it's like a 3-day weekend. You know, that's
All
what they
right.
think of
All
it as.
right. Memorial Day.
Number 8, my fucking favorite date of the year to drink, Thanksgiving Eve.
That's
This
doesn't
list is
fucking
bullshit.
count.
No, are you kidding me?
Want my money
The
back.
bars are fucking packed on Drunksgiving. Is
You
what
know
we used
what?
to call
You're
that.
right. You're absolutely right. We just did.
It's
We,
business
we came
travel.
at
People
this all
travel
wrong.
into town and then drink and then party it up because they're coming home, from
Yeah.
God knows wherever they're
We do got
living.
people
So,
watching. They're just being
I can
quiet.
totally see that.
God bless
Six
Cynthia and
was hot.
Cheryl for weighing in. It's so much
definitely.
more fun when people are chiming in on this live stuff. But you only need a couple, and we got them.
6 was Halloween, 5 was 4th of July, 4 was Labor Day, Cinco de Mayo, Mardi Gras, and Super Bowl Sunday.
Weird list, but Cinco de Mayo,
Mm-hmm.
bullshit. I challenge Ranker.
I think John Mark was the winner there because he had 3. He hit within the list, all in mid-range. Ron, you had number 10 and number 1. Lyle had number 6.
I did
Good
get
job,
one.
though. Let's move on to something Star
I would
Wars
not have
shit.
gotten one if you had you tossed that one up to me a bit.
Maybe.
Well, you tossed it
Maybe.
out there. I
As long as I'm not
Get it?
got
wrong.
me thinking
Super
of
Bowl,
drinking and
toss.
driving. I was like,
Mhm.
well, what?
Yeah.
When do you drink and not drive? Like, I couldn't think of a day. And they're like, oh yeah, Super Bowl. Unless you're
You didn't
watching
do
it at a buddy's house.
You didn't do like a salad, did you? Awesome.
Okay.
What?
So this is a ranker list, so it's as voted by people. So sometimes these are a little wonky for certain, but for the most part, I feel it's pretty solid. What we're talking about here is which Star Wars characters deserve spin-off movies. I'll say right now, the top 10 are mostly from the movies, but there are a couple from either video games or other Star Wars entities that have been produced.
Oh.
So they may be a little tougher for those that don't follow that stuff, but I think it's pretty cool. And
Now,
I'm gonna
does
give
this
you points for the-
obviously this includes only things that haven't been made yet? Is the list that
Yeah,
current, or are there
so-
things on there that maybe have been made at this point?
there is nothing on this list. Like, I'll tell you straight up, Han Solo is not on this list
Okay.
because he's already had a spin-off movie of his own.
Okay.
So nothing that has been released as of yet is on this list. I'm only going to take, I think it's quite lengthy. It's 40 something. I'm going to take top 20 answers here. We'll give you guys at least 4 rounds.
Jesus. I could barely think of 3.
Oh my.
I got a good 5.
Well, just not really a huge fan.
I got
I'll be
you.
doing all the heavy lifting here, I guess.
Yeah, I can feel that too.
Yeah,
okay,
John
so-
Mark is probably going to slay in this, but I'm pretty good with Star Wars.
Yeah. Lyle, you'll go first. Ron, you'll go second. John Mark, you will go third.
I'm going to go with 2020's internet crushing Baby Yoda.
It's an
Yep.
excellent guest. I know he's on the list. Give me a moment to find
Yeah.
him.
Well, that's a good question. When was this list compiled?
It's current, I think, because it's definitely on
post
there
Baby
at
Yoda.
number 18. So I'm going to give you 2 points
That
for
doesn't
that.
seem like post Baby Yoda.
I don't
18?
know. When you see the rest, like, okay, let's be real. When
Maybe-
you see
maybe
the
people
fucking
think
rest
they're
of this
already-
list and you want to see a standalone
Okay.
movie about one character, it's not going to be Baby Yoda. It's
And
fucking
honestly,
enormous.
Baby Yoda already has his own fucking movie. It's like
It's The
10 hours
Mandalorian.
show.
Okay, I got you. And Baby Yoda isn't Yoda, right?
No, that's correct. Baby Yoda is not Yoda. I feel so
So
nerdy.
so Yoda would be a separate guess.
That would
Yes.
be correct. Is that what you're asking for right now? Are you
That's-
dropping a
I'm
Yoda?
gonna keep it in mind, but no.
Chop-
Um,
big
I'm
Yoda.
gonna guess. Well, I see a lot of talk, and I feel like this might be something that's either in the works or just something that's being pushed, and that is an Obi-Wan Kenobi story.
Yes, there is one in the works, and Ewan
Okay.
McGregor is allegedly coming back to reprise
Oh,
the role,
fucking
and I can hardly
fantastic.
fucking wait. And lucky for you, that's number 2 on the list. Boom.
Number 2. Okay, I think I know what number 1 is.
That was going to be my first guess.
I
but
think I'm gonna
goddamn it.
get beaten by John Mark with number 1. I think your second guess is gonna be number 1, John Mark.
So my second guess, which is my first guess, would be Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, number 3 on the list.
Mm-hmm.
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 That wasn't what I thought you would guess.
Lyle.
I'm going to go and pull a rabbit out of my hat with number 2. No, what are we shooting for here?
You're aiming for something. Sorry.
Gonna pull a number 2
I'm
out
gonna-
of your hat.
I'm gonna aim high,
Yes.
but not super high. Yeah, go ahead.
I don't want to win the whole thing. I just want
A guy's got to know his limits. Yeah, that's good.
it's fun being sober. Darth Maul, I think, would be an awesome character. I don't know how
we
you put it
say
back.
what you want about the Phantom Menace. Darth Maul was a badass, right? Do we all can we all agree that Darth Maul did not get his
That whole fight
Enough.
sequence is maybe one of my favorite fight sequences in all of Star Wars. I
he's
think it's
scarier
really
than
wonderfully
fucking
done.
Darth Vader. By
In fact, they
It's
bring
pretty
him back
good
in the,
Until you watch the breakdown of it in like the slow-mo shots of them,
Yeah,
like, and you
there's a-
watch their lightsabers like
Yeah,
flying
here we
past each
go,
other,
Jen
and like
Mark.
nobody's
There's a
actually.
couple of
It's
bad
just like,
ones.
God damn it!
There's a couple of bad ones, but that
But,
soundtrack.
come
the
on, that was
Dueling Fates or whatever,
1999, right?
I know it was a long time ago. I was there in the theater. I saw it twice.
Well,
It was live.
forget about the effects. Forget about even the fight sequence. The character. Weren't you? I feel like I was enthralled with Darth Maul. I feel like Darth Maul was the only thing that kept me from walking out of the fucking theater of the Phantom Menace. I thought the rest of it felt like a holiday special version of Star Wars from 1983.
Yeah, he's I.
Yeah, he's all right. Yeah, fuck yeah. He's already got a spleen. His fucking crazy ass
Fucking dope.
grimace, like ah.
Fucking great. Darth Maul, number 4 on the list. Well done.
Thank you.
All right.
Ronster.
I want to see a 90-minute, no, 120-minute feature-length film on the origin. You think Baby fucking Yoda is special? Don't we all want to see Baby Chewie? I'm going Chewbacca.
I'd watched you. Number 12 on the list. Boom.
Dude, I was way wrong.
Hey, it's on the list. man. Come on.
Okay, it's on the list. Okay, number 1 still out there. That's exciting.
Uh-huh.
Standalone film.
Oh, for fuck's
Star
sake.
Wars character. How about Wedge?
Wedge. Wow.
Wedge.
What a fucking random pull. Not in the top 40, sir.
That's too bad because he's amazing.
Yeah, not in the top. He's not even on the list. I mean, like it's such a pull. He was one of the
That was
X-Wing
that was
pilots,
John
right?
Mark
Was he
saying
the
that
big guy?
you know my favorite Pink Floyd album was with Sid. It's a
Wedge.
little more obscure.
All the fucking Star Wars characters. And he pulled Wedge.
I
Well,
think we're going in the wrong direction for the
so,
current time.
Listen. Wedge is one of the only characters in all 3 of the first 3 films, and who survived both Death Star attack runs.
That's
and,
true.
And is prominently featured, and like he is, but he doesn't have like really any backstory other than he's amazing ace pilot, right? So it's like he's right for an actual film to
but let's break-
fleshes out his character.
Let's break down how much screen time Wedge has had.
Yeah.
like
60,
seconds.
62
'Cause we can call it
seconds.
That's why I'm saying he
But
should be
listen-
like he should have his own film.
What was the Porkster, what's that character's name?
Porkins.
Porkins. Oh, God, he's probably on the list. I probably just spoiled it for somebody.
Well, he
That ain't
died.
my next guess. Yeah, but
Spoiler.
well, a lot of these characters died that we want to see their origin stories, or their separate story. Do we really want to see the Porkins? That sounds like the fan-made movie that's bound to happen. The Porkins story.
Oh, my God. Okay.
Was that
so big
Empire or
one,
was
John
that
Mark,
Star
sorry,
Wars?
Wedge.
Or, I'm sorry.
We're moving back to Lyle.
Swing and a miss.
Well, I'm gonna
Wait,
embrace my dark side.
When's my turn?
And I'm thinking Palpatine would be a good narrative to go back in time and figure out what
Palpatine?
he was the bad of the baddest of the baddies.
I agree. I think it'd be so fucking cool, and if they start it as like he was a good person and
Yeah.
like tumbled it, like any good villain story, right?
For sure.
Number
Yeah.
11 on the list.
Well, but they're already. I mean, they're setting up his story in well, they
Like,
have set his
all the
story
movies
up.
are about him already.
Yeah, I was gonna I feel like he's pretty well covered, but yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't seen 12-year-old Palpatine.
right. It's like
What made him join the dark side?
TJ says,
Young
just as long
Palby.
as it's not another Christmas Star Wars special. See, that's what.
Yep.
I got to
Young
be honest.
Palpy.
That's what the
Adventures of
Phantom
Young
Menace.
Palpy.
That's what the Phantom Menace felt like to, what was I, in 1999, I was 24 years old. A huge, huge Star Wars fan. And you got to remember, that it's so crazy now. We have 1,000 books, probably 50 video games, at least 20 films and animations and offshoot TV shows or sequels, prequels. At least 20, right? Like, it's got to be close to that. It's such a different world. When we
13,
sat
12 or 13 movies.
When we sat our asses down in the theater to watch The Phantom Menace, all we knew of Star Wars, there were some books at that point, quite a few books actually, but most of us didn't read those books. All we knew as a movie-going audience and fans of Star Wars was that there was A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi. That's all we knew. So imagine you have, for you younger people or people that got into Star Wars later, you got to imagine that scenario going into seeing The Phantom Menace. It felt like one of those fucking Christmas. It felt like somebody was trying, you know when you would go in, like, the dollar store didn't exist in my neck of the woods when I was a kid, but I feel like when you go into the dollar store sometimes, that's changing now, they got name brand shit, but you can go in there and see like off brands, like things that weren't quite Star Wars. It'd be like Star Battle, and there'd be like somebody with a big black helmet, but it wasn't quite Darth Vader. And there's somebody in a white robe, but it wasn't quite Luke Skywalker. It just felt like one of these, we're cashing in on the logo, we're cashing in on the name, just sit there and eat your shit. And I wanted so desperately. The best part of Phantom Menace to me was honestly sitting in the theater with a bunch of Star Wars nerds in a full theater in 1999, about to watch a movie, and then the Star Wars, that audience fucking erupted, and then you got the Star Wars, the 3D crawl, the Starfield. That
so
up
did the rest
until
of
the
movie
spaceship.
suck? Like,
Yes, Chris. The rest of the movie fucking sucked. Darth Maul,
like,
I thought was
Here's
great.
the thing: I was 17 when that movie came out, and I loved it. I had a great time. I'm like, it ignited a brand new passion in me for Star Wars, made me want to watch the older movies more frequently. So, like, now looking back, when you watch it collectively, they're trash. I get that, but I think, and I hear a lot of younger people than I love those too. They love those movies.
Yeah, we talked about
I
this
don't know.
before. Probably on our very first, well, I think our only video cast to date, talking about The Force Awakens. But yeah, the younger people do seem to like, but of course they would. I mean, it's
Well,
a
the
different
younger
energy,
you
it's a different
are in
pace, it's
relation
different
to when those
graphics
films
or
came
effects.
out, the more you're gonna like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were 17. That is very different from 25. And having, now, I'm guessing that by the, well, how old were you when you saw the original Star Wars trilogy, Chris?
I mean, I didn't even see them in order. I think I watched Return of the Jedi or The Empire Strikes Back was the first movie I remember seeing. My
It's
mom
all downhill
had
from
it on
there.
TV. And I'm like fucking. I think I was in third grade, maybe, or fourth grade, right around there.
Okay.
So
That's
and then
probably about when I saw, I mean, age for age, it's probably about when I saw Empire.
yeah.
Maybe second or third. But either way, yeah, the fact that it's a different thing. And a lot of course, the younger people were like, what the fuck is this Star Wars everyone's talking about? They didn't even see any of them until The Phantom Menace came out. That was one to them. They're like, wait, the sequels to this exist 30 years ago? How does that work? It's a very, very strange franchise. Anyway, that was a derail. Teresa said, oh, Teresa, are you listening to two separate feeds? She's commenting on stuff we talked about earlier. Her favorite
I started
Irish
it
movie
fresh.
is Grabbers. Yeah, that is a good one. Oh, hey, Woundy. You got it to work? Oh, we got it to work, yeah, kind of. She also is on Team Grabbers. Emily's back with a whiskey and a beer. What's Patty doing on our doorstep? I think he's dancing. Oh boy, that's technically outside. You better get back in. We're under quarantine. Anyway, so where are we? Is it my turn?
Let's see here. I believe it is Ronster's turn. Yeah.
Okay. Well, there's an obvious one, and I think maybe we should start at the obvious and work our way away from that. I'm going to go with the. Oh, God, that's so stupid. Okay, so I want to say Luke Skywalker, but we saw his origin story.
Well, it's not
This is tough.
necessarily origin story.
That's what
right?
I was
It's
just going to ask.
standalone film.
It's a standalone movie. There's a shit
Search
ton
your
of Skywalker
feelings.
shit that we
Search
didn't
your
see.
Feelings.
I'm going to. Fuck.
Search your feelings.
What
You
do
know
is this
what is
another
true.
clue? God damn it.
Mm.
Well, now you're throwing me. Said Ben Kenobi. Are you telling me the kids don't want a fucking Uncle Ben? I'm gonna go with Skywalker. Fuck it, let's just get it out. Let's get the Beatles of the equation out there. It's probably not on there because the Star Wars. I mean, A New Hope was Luke Skywalker's origin
That's
story.
Yeah, not on the list. I
Okay.
think
All
we've
right.
seen the Luke Skywalker story in its entirety at this point.
All right,
Uh,
but we had to know.
Sorry, buddy. It's a good guess, though. I mean,
Don't patronize me.
don't give up. Don't give up, baby. John Mark, what do you got for me?
Lando Calrissian.
I
Hmm,
fucking
not bad.
love that guess, and I
Yeah.
would love, after watching Solo, which
Oh,
I
yeah.
fucking adored, by the way, I want to see the Lando with what's his name in it. Oh my god, spacing on his name. Can you give it to me?
Donald Glover.
Donald Glover, yeah.
He's fucking genius. He's
Yeah,
so
he's-
good.
He was great.
Number 14 on the list, and I think it should be fucking higher.
Yeah.
Lyle, coming back to you, baby. We'll do 2 more rounds and then pull it.
Oh, for sure. Me personally, I was a huge fan of Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2. They're both video games. And I'm gonna go with Darth Revan.
I'm so fucking happy right now. I'm so proud of you, buddy. Number 5 on the list, Darth Revan. And they
Good
made
job.
Revan. They made Revan canon. He was mentioned in the last movie, Rise of Skywalker. Somebody said something about Revan League or something, or Revan Command. What do they call the units? It's like a, you know what I'm talking about? When they have a unit of like. Anyways, he was mentioned, which makes
Platoon?
it something like that. Revan platoon, or I can't remember. But somebody was talking about a unit, Revan unit, maybe. Anyways, but that makes him canon in actual movies, so it ties something
Yeah.
into it, you know. Anyways, I got super nerdy excited about that. Number 5 on the list. Well done. Okay, Ron.
That is well done. It's already come back to me again. Fuck.
It's got
Well,
number
you
1
were-
yet?
No one's got number 1 yet. Well, you were giving me a line that Darth Vader uttered. I don't know if you were trying to give me a clue or if you were just doing a Star Wars reference. But I'm going to get all the... My job in this round is to get all the possible herrings out of the way. I also feel like we have all the fucking information we need on Darth Vader. But we haven't really seen... Not really. We know the origin story on Darth Vader. Here's the thing. John Mark's right. This doesn't necessarily need to be origin stories. This could be solo side stories about
Adventures,
Darth
yeah, like-
Vader.
Yeah. Character building.
I'm going to go with Darth Vader.
Absolutely. Great guess. Number 9 on the list. And let me tell
Alright,
you
not
why I
bad.
think this would work. We all saw Rogue One, and it was a fucking great movie. But that last 3 minutes where Darth Vader just cuts the fucking platoon of rebels down,
Yeah.
it's enthralling. Can you imagine? Give me 90 minutes of that, of him just doing terrible things with such force. Like,
Being the ultimate evil.
dude,
Children.
yes.
Fucking killed children.
Oh, my God. I think it would be great. Number 9. John Mark.
See, I'm getting hung up on the idea of people wanting to see films of characters that they haven't seen films of yet, or anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where
You're
I'm kind of.
well, you seem to be panning out better than I am. I'm going for like the
Yeah.
obvious ones.
I'm gonna
Chewie.
go for. I got 2 names in my head, and both of them are probably super
Oh,
low,
I got a good one.
and only a dumb nerd
Yeah,
like me
I don't think
would
you're
know
going
them.
lower. I don't think you're going lower than Wedge, dude. Give it to me.
Corin Horn.
Cornwood.
Coronel.
Okay.
Corn.
I I don't. Is this a joke? What's happening here?
No.
I don't see.
Corran Horn.
No, there's nothing in the top 40 for that. I'm gonna let you give me your second one if you want to too.
Mara Jade.
He's going
Is
way
your-
too obscure at this point.
He is going to obscure, but I think Mara Jade actually is on here. It does ring true, but I don't
Although
think it's
you
in
did say this goes
Mara Jade.
this
Number
goes
19.
outside of the films.
It does. Mara Jade Skywalker. Who's that?
Yeah,
I wonder who that
Mara
is.
Jade was like Luke Skywalker's lady friend in the books.
Okay, see, there you go. Number.
I don't
19.
know if they were married or not. I didn't read all those books, but she was like his. Yeah.
Okay, before we go into round number 5, the final opportunity you have to answer here.
Hmm.
I'm gonna give you a clue. The name, the number 1 name was already talked about, but nobody guessed it.
Okay.
Lyle,
Oh, it's the final round too. It's the
final round. Make it count,
'Cause
baby.
I got two. I got one that was very abstract to the nobody knows.
Matching it to
Nobody-
Cave.
There's a handful of people that actually know this,
Super
and
abstract.
it's basically the real name of Luke Skywalker. I'm not going to go with it just because it's just
Harry
we'll
one
talk
hand.
about it. We'll talk about it later. It's a secret. I'm gonna stick to my guns with a little bit of Knights of the Old Republic and go with Bastila San.
It's a good guess, but I think
It's
the
in the
only-
first video game.
I remember. She's not in the top 10, not in the top 20. I think they only took the one from, not in the top 40 even. I think they only took the one from Knights, and I'm glad that we at least got that. Oh, there may be one more.
They were talking about making a 3, so
Yeah.
so
Well, they're actually going to remake it 1 and 2 and add a third element. It's going to be like the Final Fantasy remake we've seen, like a different game. Disney is involved, and they've confirmed that they're remaking Knights of the Old Republic 1 and 2 into one game with a third element that ties it into the current movies somehow, or the current canon of films they're going to release, which makes me fucking way stoked. Anyone that plays video games knows, if you ask anyone, there's like how many Star Wars video games have been released?
there's a lot.
Lots.
Yeah.
The best one ever released is called Knights of the Old Republic, and it was so fucking great.
1 and 2, you know.
Hmm.
It's so good.
It's
Anyway.
the story. It's the
Yeah,
story.
but have you ever played Empire Strikes Back on the Atari?
I have
Get to
actually.
shoot Imperial
Well, I-
walkers, son.
It's like Defender.
Yeah, it
At
is.
that time, the video graphics were just dialed in, you know, where they had good 3D rendering, you know, because the Tomb Raider came around, you know, you had good 3D environments, and when that game hit, it hit hard, and everybody loved that game.
We
Also,
see your
if you wanna-
with your comments piling up over in the chat. We're almost done with the game, and then we'll get caught up on that, and close it out. So, but let's finish this off. So, whose turn is it now?
Lyle, did you have I wanted to give Lyle now. He threw his obscure one out. Did you have a solid backup one?
You know, the one it's basically the Luke Skywalker. It's his real name. Lucas was going to call him Starkiller. That's what his name was going to be,
Sure.
and it changed to Luke Skywalker.
That'd be a different kind of obscure.
Yeah.
Star Killer.
Super John Mark knows probably that for sure.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, not on the list, but still not too bad, sir. All right, Ronster, you got.
It's funny sometimes the more you dig into the history of George Lucas and the people that surrounded him and the story of Star Wars, it was this close to just being the stupidest film ever made. And it just, all the right
You ain't lying.
decisions got made. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So Christopher, I think you gave me another clue. When I started this conversation, well, I think Lyle mentioned Baby Yoda. I'm trying to think of what was brought up that we haven't actually chosen. I don't think anyone's actually chosen Yoda. So that's my last guess.
Number 1, and you actually started.
Holy shit.
You actually started by saying Yoda, no, and then you went like you took a sidestep away from it, like it was a dumb answer, and I was like, of course,
That
yeah,
is-
number
well,
1.
That's how I do these things. That's how
no,
I
that-
do weird trivia.
Because he's allegedly like the most powerful Jedi, right? Like we know nothing about him, nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
not
nobody
really.
knows.
He was old in the prequels. Yeah.
We know
Yeah, he was like 900 years old or
it's
something.
St. Patrick's.
Yeah,
You
going
know
back
that
to the
guy
green.
fucked. Like that guy fucked.
Oh yeah, you want to see Yoda fucking but who'd
Balls deep.
have we seen a female Yoda? We've seen Yoda, we've seen baby Yoda. Have we seen baby got Yoda?
Ourselves we fuck.
Baby Yoda, shit, get down on that. Okay.
Wasn't there a female version of that race in one of the prequels for like a second?
I don't recall that at all.
All right, so who won?
I know that there has been a character created, and her name was Yaddle.
Yaddle.
Mm-hmm.
Yoda and Yaddle. I'd watch that porn.
I don't remember if that was just in books or in the comics, or if that was also in one of the I don't know.
What is his species?
Nobody knows. It's not been defined.
It hasn't been defined even on. I have yet to
That's the
watch
thing. We know
The Mandalorian.
Oh, you haven't watched? You motherfucker.
I don't.
You've got
I'm unemployed.
time, bitch.
I don't have fucking money to pay for Disney Plus. By the way, patreon.com/Tales from the Space Pod. Yeah, I did that, but I wasted it on other things that I don't want to talk about. Saved by the Bell Marathon. What's that? Patreon.com/Tales from the Space Pod could get me caught up on The Mandalorian. Anyway, where we?
Yeah, somebody donate some money so Ron can watch the fucking Disney Plus.
Or give me one of your fucking logins, assholes.
Yeah, there we go. That's all.
Even
That's all
my
he's
girlfriend
asking
won't give me a login.
You can even give Ron a login, and you can even choose the avatar in which represents him. That'll be fun.
That I had it coming.
Wait, so I didn't get my one last really lame
yeah.
nerdy guess yet.
Oh, here we go.
Teresa, you have homework. Look up. Is there truly Yoda porn? There's definitely Star Wars porn. Oh, wait. Go ahead. What's your last obscure guess, John Mark?
My last obscure guess that's not going to be on the list is Grand Admiral Thrawn.
He actually is on the list. Let me see.
It's
I don't think he's in the top 20 though. Oh, number 15, baby. Boom. Look
Sweet.
at that.
Yeah.
Here's
Well,
all right, give me a moment to tabulate. Talk amongst yourselves.
well, in normal settings, John Mark would have destroyed us all. But
Yeah.
me having got the number 1 might have thrown it. I still like John Mark's going to take this away.
I don't know.
But I'm surprised it's even remotely tallyable, honestly.
It's literally going to take. There's a lot of math involved here. Literally, have a conversation.
Yeah. Well, this is a good time to get caught up with the comments down here.
Yeah, what are people saying?
Teresa would like to see a movie on young Leia. Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's actually.
That's probably
Ross,
coming,
you
right?
did- You had number 1 and number 2, so you actually cleared it by quite a margin here.
I had 1 and 2.
But
What was 2?
But Lyle was in a second place there, only
Oh,
just
interesting.
because John Mark was guessing pretty obscurely for a
No,
spell.
that's all I wanted.
Yeah.
Shooting for 1. I just won in second place.
Nice
So,
job, Ross. I'm going to give you a
And I-
little one up here. Boop.
Oh,
I keep track of overall wins now.
I'm pretty happy about that.
Mm.
Okay, so getting caught up on some of these. Is it weird that I dig it? Are you saying, Emily, that you dig Phantom Menace? Because this is going back a bit. Jumping back forward. Teresa says, I haven't played a Star Wars video game since the first one where you flew through the tower shooting the tops off. You know, I remember that game when I was
Yeah.
a kid. But the one I played the most was the Atari Empire Strikes Back, where literally all you were doing is shooting Imperial Walkers. But for Atari graphics, I'm still impressed by that game. What was that?
It was fucking
1982.
Defender, man.
It looked, but the ship looked exactly like, what were those craft called? John Mark, you got to know that.
Oh, the snow speeders.
The snow speeders,
Yep.
but the Imperial Walkers looked like Imperial Walkers. It was amazing. We
well,
thought,
as much as you could make them with like
10 pixels.
8-bit graphics.
I'm telling you, man, go back and look at that shit. That they looked way more like Imperial Walkers than any other. Like, go back and look at Raiders of the Lost Ark or Yar's Revenge. What the fuck are you looking at? But blocks and weird graphics. So Woundy says they also have stated Yoda was like a monk. No sex for Yoda. You know, that's a good point, Woundy. But I will say this: much like most monks, that's what they say. Mm-hmm. You know what's funny, TJ? I was like, that's TJ, but I'm drunk and it's been
Mostly
a
a
weird
vodka.
long day, and it's like, but your name is Teresa. And like, yeah, okay, yeah, but we're on target now. It's TJ. Partially eat. Okay, I missed something.
Partially ET.
Partially
What?
eat. Emily said partially eat. That was way more stressful. Mount St. Helens was another biggie. Oh, I missed a couple things, I guess. Sarah says the Christmas special was so bad. Yeah, it was terrible.
Oh, it was the
Although
worst thing ever.
I do put every year I put the the Star Wars Christmas record on, which is known for a lot of things, but one of the big pieces of trivia is that it includes the very first recorded performance of one very popular 80s lead singer. Can any of you guess the name of that lead singer? Play along at the chat. Now, you guys think about it.
Say, give me some clues again.
Everything I was spaced. What'd you say?
You guys you're already bored. You just stop looking at porn and playing video games.
Pretty much.
The Star appreciate your candor. The Star Wars Christmas record, not the show. It was called Christmas in the
Fine.
Stars.
Sure.
It contains a couple of songs that have the very first recorded performance of a very well-known performer from the 80s.
Like, can you classify as rock, pop, hip hop?
Rock, yeah.
Rock.
Did you say Canadian?
No,
No.
Yeah.
I could,
Oh my god.
but it wouldn't be true.
Fine, Adams. Oh,
I was thinking I was gonna.
Well, that's not a bad guess.
Oh,
You're
BA?
that's not too far. Not too far from the wheelhouse.
Kenny Loggins.
No, not Kenny Loggins. I think at that point he was probably a no name with Loggins and Messina. Remember this
Woman
was
or man? Woman or man? Let's narrow it down a little bit.
he's a man that occasionally looked like a woman.
Rod Alph.
Nobody
Boy George?
nobody look at the chat because the chat just got it.
Boy George?
No, good guess by my description. That might have thrown you too far off in a different direction. All right.
David
Well,
Bowie?
just think of this. What's the biggest rock band you can think of the early 80s? All the way up until the mid to semi-late 80s.
Like Kiss.
Biggest like rock pop band.
Kiss.
No.
I
Dude,
would say Def
There's
Leppard.
like so many.
Something you'd
that's,
hear on
like,
the radio.
fucking Crazy.
I'm just
Queen.
giving you a fucking clue.
Oh, Queen. Yeah, I think you got it, Queen, right?
No.
Freddie Mercury.
No. Not Queen.
Oh my god. What the fuck?
TJ got it in the chat.
I don't
Woundy
want to look. I
confirmed.
want to.
Yeah, I can't help but look. It's on my second monitor.
Oh, I'm gonna look.
Well,
too.
you're
Fuck.
halfway there.
Oh, it's Bon Jovi.
There you go.
You fucking twat.
Yeah, first
now you're just fucking trolling us.
first
man. Come on.
ever. I mean, it's a trivia. It's a piece of trivia. It's fairly obscure trivia, but it's also well known. Anyone that knows that record or
They were big in the '80s. I wouldn't call them one of the biggest bands of the '80s.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Shot
Who
down.
would, who would you
replaced
put
with-
bigger in the '80s than Bon Jovi? In pop rock.
Fuck, I don't know. I mean, Motley Crue was bigger than they were.
I don't know.
Yeah, in the later '80s. I don't know about the early '80s. The early '80s, living on a
Fucking
prayer,
dudes.
like that
Def
era.
Leppard.
Def Leppard, yeah. I mean, they're all kind of right there. Bon Jovi was a huge band. I mean, come on.
I mean, they were pretty big, but I mean, I don't know. Whatever.
Chat, back me up.
This is all semantics right now, anyway. so-
AC/DC would have been.
It is. I wouldn't consider them pop rock.
Nah, AC/DC is just straight up hard rock.
Yeah. Anywho, well, that was fun. And I won something. I lost something, but I won something. And we all lost something and won something.
But we all learned something. That's the key.
Lightsaber to the heart, and you're to blame. Darth Maul, you give. The midsection. Anyway.
Good job, guys. Good job.
Yeah, well, we're about at 2 hours. Well, thank you all for joining us tonight in our very first Hopefully last quarantined St. Patty's Day. But we'll see. Be a hell of a thing if we were quarantined for a whole year, huh? I do think that we will see what San Francisco is doing right now. We'll see that everywhere within the week. And I'm ready for it. If we're going to do any of this shit, let's do all of it. Let's just, and I'm being serious, let's shut
Let's do it right.
the entire fucking world down. Because why half-ass this? It's not worth it. But the government and the bank system, they need to come up with something that is as extreme as what they are all asking us to do, including
Yep.
a mortgage holiday, if not 2 mortgage holidays, where we all get a break. And if you're renting, we get a break. Nobody
And
should have to
UBI.
pay their fucking rent when they're being demanded to not work. And there's enough money to do this. I don't know the logistics of how to make it happen and how to make it happen quickly, but come on. We all know there's enough money to do this. And the other thing I like about it is if the government and the bank systems are not getting the money that they're used to getting, I think that lights a particularly spicy fire under their asses to hurry up and get this shit resolved so that we can get back to whatever the next life is. I don't honestly think we go back to where we were. And
I don't think so
I'm
either.
not terribly disappointed by that notion because where we were was not great for a lot of people. We talked about this. I don't know if we talked about, God, it's all a blur at this point. We were chatting a bit last night, maybe at the beginning of the show.
Negative Nancy on it, but there's a lot of bad things that still could happen. You know,
Oh, it
there's
will
something that
happen.
I've always thought about was like I don't like my money being in big company banks because if the market crashes and then like over in Europe, what happens? You lose all your money.
Mm-hmm.
They foreclose, they're gone, and you're done, and you don't have any money. So I always try to keep my money in local banks like credit unions. and
Credit
whatnot.
unions are so much better than banks, in my opinion, and experience. But, you
But
know,
in reality, I mean, if everything falls, I mean, we're at a cusp. We're at a good cusp where things could go okay. But in the same sense, I can't help but think about like my upbringing, you know, for my age. I remember when I was a kid and I didn't have chicken pox, and you at that time you had a block party, and you were invited to whoever had it, so
to
they
rub
could
up against the people that had it. Mm-hmm.
to get you to have the chicken pox or whatever.
That was
you
your
know,
vaccination.
to get it done with, get it over with, you know,
Yep.
because it was one of those things.
Yep.
And what we're doing right now is we're haltering that off, and we're all kind of going to our corners, and we're kind of staying away from it.
That's not the same thing, though, Lyle. Chickenpox won't kill you.
Good.
Unless you're an adult. So when you were a kid, that was the thing to do. But this is completely different. It's going to kill a lot of people, and it's not the thing to be exposed to in that way. It doesn't work the same way.
And I'm not saying go out there and be rubbing up on each other, but what
Yeah.
I'm saying
We're not
is that-
advocating Corona belly rubbing parties yet.
Exactly.
Yet. Give us another week.
But-
Who knows? We'll see.
Well, the thing is like, what if it spreads on a slow process? So like if maybe we in Washington, we get over it in a month, and then all of a sudden we get another fucking huge outbreak, you know?
Well, that's why we all have to be that's why everything's
One-
shutting down and why it all needs
Sure.
to stay shut down
Right, but how long can you go? You know,
until we have to.
it's just
Right? That's the
mindset.
thing.
It's
It-
gonna get so bad, you guys.
I think
I
it's gonna
thought it was gonna be 3 months. It may go into the fall.
yeah, and it's just, you know, it's kind of one of those deals. You got to think about it because it's possible. I mean, it could definitely.
This is gonna be like a paradigm changing shit right here. What we're going through.
I agree. I don't think it's going to go into the fall. And the reason I don't think it's going to go even a couple of more months is because what we're seeing in China. I mean, if you're believing the overall picture of China, they're starting to go back to fucking work. Their curve is leveling off. They're not in happy glory days. And it'll be interesting to see once they have all gone back to work if we don't see another round, because there's got to be people that haven't been exposed and people that are still sick. So maybe we'll see it ramp back up. That'll be a telling moment. But people are recovering, and we're also focused on the bad of this, and there's plenty of bad, but we're being way more proactive than a lot of places have been that are already starting to see some hint, at least, of recovery. But to me, the virus end of the situation, as a 44-year-old, I mean, I guess this is age privilege, this particular sitch, that's the lesser of the situation here right now. Right now, it's how are we going to survive this economically? And we can, but one thing I meant to bring up at the beginning of this, we started by talking about some of the positive things going on. You know, people are rallying around the troops. People are offering to go pick up food. All the restaurants that have been shut down, they're offering to-go orders. The government's sort of turning a blind eye, if not full on permitting these places to deliver booze or let you pick up growlers to go, which we just got tonight from McGlynn's. But when Sarah went to pick that shit up from McGlynn's, she said there was a solid line. There were so many people ordering from McGlynn's tonight to go that she got a busy signal when she called. When's the last time you even heard a busy signal?
Wow.
In this modern age, the phone lines were clogged. I think that's one, it's St. Patrick's Day. So people are, you know, it's a festive day. But two, people are getting the message that if we want a society worth sticking around for on the other side of this, we have to make that happen. A lot of you are employed business as usual. Tomorrow you go to work and you get a paycheck. A lot of us aren't. Those are the people you need to think about. You also need to think about the businesses that have straight up been shut down. You can support them. If you got money coming in, support them. That will come back to you. Not, and I'm not talking in a karmic way, although it could. I'm talking about in an actual practical way where if you feed your neighborhood and your economy, they are alive to feed you back.
It's true.
It's a cyclical thing, and it's a circle jerk. We can all get each other off. I can't think of any other way to say it. So I guess there we have it. Let me scroll back up through but I think it's positive. I'm feeling, again, look, we've gone this far. Shut the whole fucking world down. A week ago, I would not have said those words. Now, I see what's happening. I was never like, oh, this thing is no big deal. We're all panicked. Well, maybe I was to some degree. I think it was healthy to feel that way to some degree in the early stages. I don't feel that way now, but again, it's not necessarily about the virus. It's about how this is going down, what these orders actually mean. And listen, this could, let's say that once all the numbers are really in, we're like, actually, this thing wasn't all that worse than the flu. Well, maybe we can learn a little something about this experience for the next flu season, which kills hundreds of thousands of people every fucking year. That is a sad, tragic, scary thing to look at too.
It may not be yet, as far as death toll and stuff goes. We can maybe not yet say this is worse than the flu, but I think it's showing us in other elements and aspects of society and how our systems work.
It's different.
How shitty all that shit is.
Yeah. There's no question, whatever this thing pans out to be, there's no question it's different from the flu. That alone is worth pause and adjusting our schedule. But like I said last night when we were, chatting in private, I think that a lot of places tonight in America will look like any other St. Patrick's Day. And
Yeah,
I think that's going to be telling what happens in the next couple of weeks. The next couple of weeks are going to be very, very key. We're either going to get some really good news or bad news that's going to change the complete economic structure of this entire country. But again, bright side, even you capitalists out there, bright side, maybe, just maybe, something will change and we'll realize that the system that we have set up is so fucking fragile and so one-sided and so uneven that maybe there's something better out there. I'm not preaching communism. I'm not preaching socialism. I don't even understand these things on real levels. I don't know anything. I'm neither traveled nor educated. I just know I have busted my fucking ass, and I've watched people that I know and care about bust their fucking ass and do all the things seemingly right, and they haven't quite hit that so-called American dream where anybody can make it. I don't feel like that's really how this system works. If there's one bright side to this, maybe, burning the system down a little bit and building it up from the ground isn't always a terrible thing. But for the love of Christ, let's get through it first. We can talk about all this later. Let's survive. Let's keep everybody around and put pressure on the politicians and the banks to give these mortgage holidays, give these benefits, give these breaks. You cannot tell the entire country to stay inside for a month and not take care of them. You can't fucking do that. And if they do, that might also be a revolution in the waiting, because we will not fucking tolerate that. We won't. We are not going to go hungry. We're not going to be stuck in our homes forever. At some point, if they don't take care of us at the same level of insanity and like, this is huge. What we are all doing right now with our lives is huge. Closing our businesses, not working for months, not having our kids at school. Even a lot of people that still have their jobs can't work at them because they got to be home with their kids. If the daycares haven't shut, they will shut. Everything is going to shut. Let's just shut it down. Let's just fucking shut every goddamn thing down. But pay us the money to survive. If that happens, we'll get through this, and I think we'll be in a better place on the other side of it than we were when we went into it. If not, either way, we're going to see ourselves some rev-a-fucking-lution because we've had it good for too long. Maybe we need a little bit of shit to wake us up, if I'm being honest. Go ahead, Lyle.
What I was going to say is that, like, we got to also look outside the box because, we're a podcast. We go and we have fans all over the world. The problem is that, like, not every state is doing this.
Not yet.
We are isolated down into a state of, Washington.
They will by the end of the week, I promise you. This entire nation will be on this kind of lockdown.
Sure, but what I'm still getting at, it's just as an educational, what we're talking about. It's real to us, even though it might not be happening in your backyard. It possibly can.
Yeah, get ahead of it. Well, people
All
in the
right.
comment thread, before we get out of here, Cynthia said, even if all the same people get it, eventually still worth it to slow the spread. Absolutely. If you cut it by 10%, it's worth it, right? That's a lot of people. TJ said, most pandemics come back 2 to 3 waves. That's what we're about to find out with China. Emily said, I thought I saw China's starting to open. It is. Going back to what I said, we shall see. It's going to be very, very telling. A couple of weeks all around the world. We'll see what's going on in Italy, too, after these super strict restrictions. Cheryl says, I read an article today about Washington State superintendent said they may actually keep kids out of school until fall.
That's what I was saying.
Well,
That's what I think.
Fall.
listen, I'm down for whatever it's going to take to keep this thing from killing thousands
Millions?
and certainly tens of thousands or possibly millions of people. But it's not just down to us. The government and the banking system have to meet us halfway. I don't think anyone's expecting benefits beyond what's fair. But if this is really a thing that they expect us to do, they're going to have to kick down, and it's a no-brainer. The question is, are they going to do it? How much money is it going to be? How quickly is it going to come? One way or
Tune
the
in
other,
next week.
a revolution's coming. This is scary and it's crazy, but I do think that we're going to come out of the other side of it with better days. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I could
That's
be
what I
wrong.
gotta think too.
I'm not a super optimistic guy sometimes, but I feel like there's a purge that has to happen every so often,
Yeah.
I feel like this is a purge. But anyway, well, thank you all for joining us tonight. We shall see. Love each other. If you got money, I'm seeing an awful lot of these pop-up GoFundMes, these campaigns, like support artists by donating to this thing. Don't do any of that shit. Just don't do any of it. If you want to support something, just support it directly. I promise you, half of these things popping up are either scams or
Yeah.
somebody that is taking a skim off of it or distributing those monies into things that you don't give a shit about. Support the
Buy
things you give a
something
shit
from
about.
somebody's Etsy shop or something.
Localize it. Who do you want to not go away? What's your one priority in town? What's one company, one business that you love to go to, or that's owned by somebody that you truly care about, that you don't want to see go away? Do whatever you can. Give them a check. Get the to-go orders. See if they have a Patreon thing, whatever. Shop online. That's how we got to go about this. And going back to the McGlynn's thing, if this holds up, this energy holds up, and the support for the community holds up, we might actually get through it. I'm not on team paying attention to anything that says we're in this for 6 months. We don't know shit about this. Don't pay any attention to anything outside of what's happening day to day. Stick to the precautions. All of that, you got to remember. 99% of the information you are getting is coming from some entity that gets paid every time you click on that story or stop on that channel long enough for a commercial to pop up. Nothing sells advertising like fear. I'm not downplaying this thing. I'm just saying this bullshit where people are talking about, no, we're in it for 8 months. Nobody knows that. Nobody can know that. Maybe they're right, but nobody knows that. We don't even know 2 months worth of this thing yet. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Well, in reality, for us, it hasn't even hit. You know what I mean? We haven't even had it hit us. You know,
this town, as far as we know, we haven't had any confirmed cases as of yet, which is crazy, right? We're right next to ground zero for the United States. Although New York has passed us in infections, but we are still ahead of them in deaths, which I'm curious about.
It's just because there's so many people that are walking around that have it that don't even know they have it. They're not even showing symptoms. And that's the worst part about it.
But it's also the best part
like,
about it, considering the numbers. Possibly.
Well, no,
possibly. Because
I guess
think
that's
about
true.
if there's 100 people out there that thought they had a cold or a flu last month, but they had this thing and got over it and fine, and the people they spread it to got over it being fine, none of those people were tested for. We have no idea how many people actually have this fucking thing.
You're right.
So that's what I'm saying. We don't know anything that's planning for 8 months down the road. That's scare tactics. It may be accurate. We don't know. But don't pay attention to it. Just look a week ahead. Follow whatever the updates are. And then go about your business in the best possible way you can. I think we're all going to be okay. But be mindful. And if you're in a fortunate position right now to have funds, share them just a little bit with someone that you don't want to see drown in all of this. Because
there's a ton of local mom and pop restaurants out there that would love to have your backing for sure.
Yeah, they're gonna fold so fucking quickly.
McDonald's or freaking Wendy's or whatever.
There's no way Radar Station would have survived this, not one fucking month, if the government wasn't kicking me down some money, or kicking my landlords down some money so that they didn't have to charge me rent. I don't know how it looks. I don't know what the system is. All I know is there's so much money in this fucking planet. We can fix this. Doesn't mean we will without some sort of painful revolution. But something's coming. And by the way, do we have, before signing off, do we have an update on Tom Hanks? Because that's all this really boils down to, right? How is Tom Hanks doing?
An article today that just said he's bored in isolation.
I heard that he went home, or that he was at least discharged from the hospital.
I didn't see that yet.
It'll take a celebrity dying from this to wake up a certain sect.
Probably. Did you hear Idris Elba tested positive?
Yeah, he's only the third celebrity that I've heard of.
Who's the second?
Well, Tom Hanks and his wife, they're both celebrities.
Oh.
Isn't that kind of crazy though? Like it didn't break down in LA. Could you imagine if it was just wiped out LA for ground zero besides Seattle? You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy, because it's obviously news, but how hard hitting it would be.
Yeah.
Guys, I gotta go.
Yeah, well, thanks you. Thanks you all for joining us on this semi-drunken, semi-serious, but semi-fun Blarney cast. Patreon.com/Tales from the Space Pod. $2 helps. Do what you can. I'm unemployed. Christopher's on leave. Lyle's truly ill. John Mark's working from home. These are scary times for all of us. If you can help anything that you believe in, God bless you. It'll come back to you. I promise. Tune in next week. We will be talking about 9/11, y'all. Have a good night. Wash your hands and be well. We love you all.